Live rounds. The marksmen have arrived.
You're watching Live Rounds with Doug and Steven and being introduced to you by the real IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, Will Ospreay.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Live Rounds episode 96 we are at now. So hope everyone's doing good. And yeah, we got plenty to talk about as always. This will be your weekly bashing of LA Knight that we do. And I'm just messing with y'all. But how you doing tonight, Steven?
I'm doing good, everyone. Hope y'all can see and hear us okay. Your internet seems a little choppy again, Doug. I can hear you perfect, though. I don't know what's going on. We have had some little technical difficulties going into the show, but I think it'll balance itself out. If Doug needs to pop in, we'll figure this out. But I think you're good, Doug. We'll let the internet catch up over there. I'm doing good though. Good to see everyone here in the chat tonight. I had a full day of work today, and then I just interviewed Adam Priest, independent wrestler. Myself and Jeremy interviewed him for the Spotlight. That's going to be airing in a couple weeks. I'll announce this. I haven't even said anything about this. I'll actually break this here on this show for the hardcore audience that watches this, that's here early for the show. The guest that's supposed to be on Thursday. So we interviewed Adam Priest. That's going to air later this month. It was a great interview. It's going to air on the 24th of this month. This Thursday, unless something catastrophic happens, if all goes as planned, the interview that y'all should hear on this Thursday morning on the Spotlight is going to be with Teal Rhodes. So got a lot to talk about with Cody's Mr. Teal. So that's going to be a fun conversation. Now, there's definitely certain things I can and can't talk about when it comes to certain stuff, obviously. But obviously, the documentary is huge. The Dusty Rhodes Foundation is awesome. So y'all should be hearing from Teal on Thursday morning. We're supposed to interview her tomorrow night, and it would air the next morning. So very much looking forward to that. And yeah, now I'm here with you, Doug. So yeah, it's been a pretty good day.
Now, is that just something that you contact her and say like, hey, I'm a big fan, love to interview you, or how does that work?
I've been in contact with her a little bit since Cody returned to WWE, just about like little things here and there, especially like around like WrestleMania. Nice. Because I was like posting a lot of like Cody in high school type stuff, like leading into WrestleMania. So yeah, I've talked a little bit to her just about that kind of stuff, but that's kind of how it came together. Then when the documentary came out, I was like, oh, this is perfect timing to see if she wants to do an interview, because the documentary just came out and SummerSlam just happened. So like, it's positive Cody vibes coming off SummerSlam. Like he beat Brock Lesnar. Like this isn't negative, like WrestleMania. Like this is positive, So anyway, I'm really looking forward to it. But yeah, that should be a cool conversation.
Yeah, no, that could be fun, especially since you have history with him, like in wrestling and all that stuff. I think that would be really cool to kind of reflect on some of that stuff and just where he's at on everything. But yeah, that's super cool. You've met you've interviewed the biggest Cody Rhodes collector, and now you're interviewing his sister. I mean, we're getting right there to where you're going to be able to interview the man.
We're getting you're making, unless the interview this week sucks, then maybe it's just gonna like I'll just he'll see that and be like, oh yeah, this he had his chance and he blew it. But also something I wanted to talk about.
I will say this too, like that is totally true in my opinion.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about Brock Lesnar acknowledging Cody Rhodes on this show. Don't y'all worry. Doug, can you try leaving and coming back?
He acknowledged his tribal chief.
Sorry, just because there's like a massive lag. There's like a massive lag. Yeah, your camera's getting clearer, but there's like a massive. Y'all see that also on in the chat. Hopefully that isn't just me, there's like a massive lag between when I'm talking, and that's why we're talking over each other. What's up, everyone in the chat? We will get to all the super chats, by the way. We saw one that came in from Vincent Valentine before we even went live, which we really appreciate. We will address that here shortly. Anyone else who sends super chats, will make sure I'll get in my little square. We'll make sure to put up your super chats on the screen. We'll read them out. We'll answer your questions, all that kind of stuff throughout the show. We always keep an eye on it. I'll probably be on here until probably about midnight Eastern time. But Doug, I don't know. Doug stayed on with y'all for an extra like hour and a half or something last week, I heard. So maybe Doug's going to stick around a little bit longer. I'm not sure, but we'll make sure to address all of your super chats throughout the show too. And we definitely got stuff to talk about. We had SummerSlam, and that included Cody Rhodes defeating Brock Lesnar, of course. We had LA Knight, win the Slim Jim Battle Royal. And then he and The Miz had a segment on Raw, which I think people are going to be interested to hear my opinions on. So yeah. So kill some time here waiting for Doug. Let's see what people are saying in the chat. And I see all y'all, a lot of the regulars here. Appreciate y'all. Some new faces, I think, as well. Everyone is welcome. Thank y'all for joining us tonight. Castle says he's here for LA Knight Trash Talk. We'll definitely get to LA Knight. Mystery asks why we hate him so much. Well, once again, we'll get to It's funny because, like, even I was talking to Jeremy about this with the Spotlight. Me and him were talking tonight after we interviewed Adam Priest. And we were saying, like, people were probably so sick of hearing me, like, complain about him. But he's so relevant right now. Like, everyone's talking about him constantly. Like, we kind of got can't not, he's the elephant in the room. You can't not address what's going on with him on the shows. Doug is messaging me, going to restart my computer, try to hold down the fort. Yeah, I can hold down the fort, Doug. I got you, man. And by the way, when Doug comes back on, y'all are about to hear my opinions on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I saw that in theaters the other night in Dolby. And Doug was very skeptical about the idea of that movie, and I'm going to tell him what I thought about it because I went and saw it. Let's see what else we got going on in the chat tonight. I see Alexander Fitzgerald in the chat, as always. We got Ramen Reigns. I like the hell. Is that a picture of Roman Reigns with ramen for hair? I can't tell. It's a small picture. But if that's what that is, that's very clever. I like that. We got Robert Aguirre. Ague? I'm probably saying that totally wrong. Robert, welcome back to the chat. Dirty, what's up, Dirty? As always, Michael Young in the chat. What up, Michael? Michael Young or Jung? I always forget how to pronounce your last name, but you're always in here talking about your Patriots. We got football. Football's back. Very excited for that. And I saw people talking about wanting a fantasy football stuff. I probably won't do another fantasy football league. I'm good with just like my one from my buddies, with my buddies since high school. That's kind of the one I put all my time and effort into. But we have dabbled about the idea of like a Discord and stuff like that. And if y'all joined on that, and Doug could probably do that, and we'll get some moderators or something. I may not be involved with the fantasy football, but I love football. And I'm glad that it's back. I'm going to be gambling a lot of on like prize picks and daily fantasy, whatever you call it, throughout the season for sure. ECW Hardcore 7 in the chat. Zuna Infinity in the chat. I like that name too. Zuna Infinity. John Gorman in the chat. Man, thank y'all for hanging out. We were just waiting for anyone dropping in. We are just waiting on Doug to restart his computer. He's having some technical issues. Alexander Fitzgerald with a massive super chat. Thank you, Alex. Man, really appreciate that. $20. So we got a couple super chats to get to. This would actually be a really good time, y'all. If you had super chats you wanted us to address, now would be a good time to like get them in. Mainly because when Doug comes back, we can probably hit most of those before we get into the topics. We can like kind of hit all those kind of now for y'all whenever he comes back. And then, of course, if you want to send him throughout the show, especially if there's something that you wanted to talk about later, like LA Knight specific, maybe it's live rounds. We'll bounce around. That's the whole nature of the show. But Smash that like button, says ECW Hardcore 7. Yeah, definitely smash that like button. That thumbs up here on whatever platform you're watching this on. Jimmy McNulty. Why does that sound familiar? Is that a Hey Arnold reference? McNulty. No, is that a McNulty? McNulty, was that Rugrats or something like that? It was like McNulty. And maybe that's just your name. There's people who like to not necessarily troll. There's people in our chat who will homage things that they know I'm a fan of. So like we'll get like Always Sunny references and people's names in the chat and stuff like that. Frankie Mattis, The Wire. Is that what that's from? Please hit that thumbs up. Doug would love coming in here and seeing that we got all these thumbs up. There we go. I'm going to pop off here and pop Doug on. Check this out. I'm going to go. Okay, let's see how you're sounding, Doug.
How about now?
Okay, I think everything's synced up.
Okay, hopefully it's not too bad at least.
Oh, it was good for a second. And then
can you hear me now, or is it still amazing?
So it was really good for like a second, like right when you jumped on. And then it's like, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it'll balance out a little bit here.
They can hear me. I wonder, I'm not saying it is, but like if they can hear me, I guess we'll just have to take turns and waiting till I come through. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm good with whatever. I mean, I was just, so if you want to, well, before we get started on the wrestling topics, there was something I wanted to bring up real quick that you'll be very interested in.
Good.
So, the other night I went and I saw the Ninja Turtles movie in theaters.
No, yeah.
Yeah. It was fantastic. Like it was a really good movie. It was really good. Like you're really missing out. Like anything that anyone got like outraged about with that movie, like you're doing yourself a disservice if you're a Turtles fan. You don't go see that movie. Like they don't change anything significantly enough to ruin anything. Even the stuff that they change is just like to update it. Like it really, like some of the backstory is a little different and stuff, but it's not like, I thought it was a really, really good movie. I thought the animation was badass. Like I thought the story was good. Like a lot of the old characters were in it from like the movies and the cartoon. They set up the second movie really well. Like it's like, I thought it was really, really good. I'm probably going to see it in theaters again, honestly.
That's good. That's good to hear. Were any stuff like the Splinter stuff and all that was not legit?
No.
Okay, good. That's good to hear.
I mean, like if it was just like the character that he like, I mean, spoiler alert, I guess, but like the character he winds up with, it like I wouldn't have known the gender of that thing regardless. And that it's like a fly that spits like venom, like it drools all over the place. It's just like disgusting. Like it wouldn't make a difference regardless. But they refer to it as she though, I believe, throughout the movie, regardless. But yeah, no, it's nothing like Splinter's actually hilarious. Like they make his character like really funny in the movie. Like I thought it was really good personally. But this is coming from an OG fan. I wore my Kino t-shirt to the movie. Like so I was representing the old.
Oh yeah,
I was ready.
Your pizza box.
Yeah, I was. Listen, I was ready for it to not be good. I was ready for it to be Space Jam 2 or for it to be, Jay and Silent Bob reboot or something like that. And it was packed. There were like every seat in there, and there was a bunch of kids in there too and stuff, and parents, and like everyone was like clapping and laughing and like cheering and stuff. Like it was a really good experience. It was honestly, it was probably better than the Mario movie, which I loved. Like both of them were like perfect movies, what they thought they like needed to be. So way better than any of the other movies I've been seeing.
Yeah, that's good. No, I don't have Spectrum Internet. I actually have AT&T. So normally it's not too bad a problem. The only thing is, man, like when the power goes out, it takes a while for them to function properly, I guess. And so that's where we're at right now. So frustrating. Sorry, guys. Hopefully we can still make it through the show. I go. There Steven is.
Yeah, sorry, you're frozen on my screen. I wasn't sure what was going on for a second.
Steven, do you think if you hosted that it would change anything? Like if you're the one that enters in first, or do you think it matters?
I don't know. Probably not necessarily. Like, because if you dropped off, my internet would still be holding it at like the stream going. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah. Just don't know what the issue is.
Because like this happened before, and like you like just like would exit the room, come back in, and usually it fixes itself. Like I've seen this happen with StreamYard before. It's just weird that it isn't like
fixing itself. I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
And this sucks. Ugh.
Yeah, the only thing I could think of.
So the only thing I like really stood out to me was Osprey and El Phantasmo. So everyone's saying the audio sounds fine. So I really think it's just between us. Like,
well, the audio sounds fine.
The connection is between us.
The problem is there's a lag where like I can't tell when you are and aren't talking for like until we're gonna talk over each other constantly. That's what I'm afraid of.
Let's see, I'm not downloading a damn thing. I literally restarted my entire computer and I'm not doing anything. And it is just, but it's got like everything going. I don't know. Hold on. Man, this is an L.
Mystery says it's punishment for LA Knight slander.
Yeah.
They're trying to make.
Although the Miz roasted him.
That's the problem. We're going to keep talking over each other. The delay is getting. I can't. I mean, I can drop off the stream and see if it helps any, but I'm almost positive it's on your end. Because if everyone can see and hear me fine, like
yeah, no, I'm not saying it's not. I just don't know. I just don't know the fix.
Oh, geez.
Kent Jones is back. Yeah, he got us.
Jeez, that's a blast from the past.
Sure is.
Yeah, it sucks. I mean, yeah, I don't know what to tell y'all.
What the hell?
The only thing you'd be able to do is like keep trying to. I mean, I can talk to the chat.
Yeah, I think that's what
fix, but
yeah, I don't know. Because I mean, I don't know what else I really can do. I've done pretty much everything I can. This pisses me off. Yeah, sorry guys. I don't know what to do. I mean, I probably could go live another day if you guys want me to just make this up. But yeah, everyone says I seem fine. It's just between us. I'm not saying it's not like I just know like on our end, I know there's a big delay because I can tell when I talk, you can't hear me. And then it takes a while for it to register to you. So I'm like, ugh.
Is Doug's mouth matching with what he's saying? Are the words matching with what he's saying? Or mine?
Do I look like a dubbed Asian movie? Like like the old Jackie Chan movies where they dub them in English? It's off by a little.
Okay, hold on. Like, can you hear me right now? Like, say something right now.
You want me to say something?
Yeah. Say something. Well, I mean, I was trying to see how bad the delay is.
I mean, are you able to hear me enough after I'm done talking?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You're starting to sync up a little bit better.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I think the
So,
connection's starting to get better. Okay. You can
okay,
hey,
cool.
whenever the second you hear me say this, throw up a thumbs up.
Okay, try again.
Throw up a thumbs up right now. Okay, that's way better than it's been all night. Okay, I think we can do the show. All
right. Let's go. Let's just jump into something. So, hold on, let me get to the super chats first because you guys are awesome and already sent 3 super chats. I want to go ahead and get those so those don't get ignored.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Vincent Valentine. I appreciate it. $5 super chat from him. You guys' thoughts on Omega versus Takesha as the plan for Wembley? Takesha is good, but the expectation was Omega Ospreay 3 or Omega Punk, in my opinion. I think it's going to be an incredible match, so I'm not too worried about it. Like, especially with what they kind of have planned going into All In, I think that we're going to be in pretty good shape, and that could just be a big show stealer. It does make me wonder what we're doing with Ospreay and Omega, though, because it was really hinted that they were going to wrestle there. And Ospreay seems to me like he's going to win the G1, and it likely will beat Sonata for the title. So I just don't know when an Ospreay Omega match fits, and especially if Omega was a free agent soon, which he's not. They re-signed, thank God. But if that was the case, like, what was the plan to have them run it back before the end of the year? Like, I don't know. So that I'm a little bit on the fence about.
Yeah, I feel the same way about it. Like, I figured that they were gonna. I thought it was a for sure slam dunk that they were gonna do Omega and Ospreay at Wembley, like for sure. But I mean, Takeshita, obviously the story they're building with all that. I mean, it's a big moment for Takeshita. Like, I'm sure it's gonna be really good. Yeah, it's
also think it fits.
Yeah,
I think it fits because Don's guy now is Takeshita. Like, he's moved on from Kenny and he's going with Takeshita. So I mean that makes sense that they would have a match. So I'm cool with it. And I've always thought, like, when these guys actually do wrestle, it's going to be incredible because I think Takeshita wrestles a lot like Kenny. So I think that they're going to have a killer match. I know what people want. You wanted Omega and Ospreay. The problem is if you do Omega and Ospreay, like, how is MJF and Adam Cole going to compete with that in the main event? Like, I know they're great. But, like, Danielson and Okada couldn't touch Omega and Ospreay. And, like, granted, Danielson got injured, and I get it. But I just think that's one of those matches that it has to main event. If you're going to do it, it has to main event because it's too hard to follow afterwards. So, although I do think the storyline and everything with Adam Cole and MJF, there will be people that will really be involved in that storyline and wrapped up into that and actually care very much about what happens. So that is there too. It's interesting. Let's go to our next super chat. Alexander Fitzgerald, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it, man. As always, I can't thank you enough. All in shaping up to be a great show. MJF versus Cole, Joe versus Punk, FTR versus the Bucks, possibly Malachi versus Andrade. My only concern is how do they build towards All Out? What other matches do you see happening at All In? So one thing is I did find it very interesting that CMFTR is going to try to get the trios titles on Collision this Saturday. And why would they do that? Like, so if that happens, I could very well see something happening there at All Out if they wanted to go that route. I also think because the Elite has re-signed, it really opens the door to a lot of this stuff because I think before you were kind of on pins and needles about what you wanted to do because these guys might exit. But now that you know that they're there for the next 4 years or whatever, then you're probably much more comfortable working a program like this if you want to go there. And with the Bucks going to be feuding with FTR, it just kind of makes sense for them if they have that match at All In than to still have something connected to that at All Out. So I don't know, but I do think that it's definitely possible that we're getting close to the Elite versus CM Punk FTR feud if they want to go that direction.
Yeah, I could definitely. I mean, it is really interesting, and I'm really looking forward to it. Like, it's just like 2 weeks away for me being in Atlanta for the Dynamite and Collision, heading into All In, and knowing that everyone's going to be at that. I would love to see, like, I mean, if I feel like if CMFTR is going for the trio titles, like they got to win, right? Like, I mean,
yeah, you would think, and not only that, like you would think the FTR is going to retain, right? Like I don't know with the Bucks, like, but I don't know. I mean, the Bucks could win.
Maybe
it's possible.
That's probably what I would do. Honestly, I'd probably have the Bucks beat FTR, because the one thing that I've said, and I knew this would eventually happen a bit regardless, but before the trios titles got created, we said it on this show plenty too, like that I personally didn't want the tag and trios to like overlap at all, because otherwise, like, just like have trios pretty much. Like you can do like everything like New Day style if you wanted to, or whatever, Freebird style. If like you're just gonna have a bunch of 3-person teams anyways, like I kind of felt like you need to keep the tag team and the trios stuff all separate, in my opinion, like 2 totally different divisions with as many different people involved as possible. But
yeah,
in this scenario, like, so that's kind of a long way of saying, like, I prefer if FTR wasn't the tag team champions and the trios champions, but if the longer term story, or like this all kind of happens, I mean, because if they only have all those titles for a short time and then they keep the trios titles, but the Young Bucks beat them for the tag titles, but then it leads to a big, Elite versus CMFTR match or something like after that and stuff. Like, I'm fine however they want to get to all of that, however they want to do that, it's cool with me. Like, I just really want to see all those guys in the ring with each other at this point. So I think you could, I think you think like at All Out, we could see like the Elite versus CMFTR, like a version of that.
I think it's very possible. And I mean, what better way to do that than in Chicago?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? You want to sell tickets at the United Center, you do that. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I don't know, but
that.
I do think that it could happen. One thing about Punk, though, man, he has made sure that he has lined himself up with some options. Like, he could go. Samoa Joe called him out, right? So, I mean, you would hope that that's what they're going to do at All In. I think that it's perfect for All In just to, like, close that book, close that chapter on that feud in front of 80,000 people. I mean, that's amazing. But the Ricky Starks thing is very much still alive there. And the Jay White thing could happen at any moment if he wanted to go that direction. He's now wanting the trios titles. I mean, he's really setting himself up for plenty of plans down the road. So I don't know necessarily what I like. It could very well be Punk and Joe, and then Punk and Starks at All Out. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if this time, like, Punk cheated to beat Starks, even though Starks is the heel now, but like Punk one-ups him just to show that, like, I'm not just gonna lay down and let you keep cheating. I'll cheat too to win. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So like I don't know, because people are like, dude, Punk's already a heel. I'm like, man, he says a lot of babyface type stuff in his promos too. So like, I don't know. He's flirting with that line just like Ricky was, but then Ricky actually officially turned heel, I guess you would say. So I'm interested to see how that goes too. Also, you would definitely think Andrade, Malachi Black for All In, but like, how do we get there if they're going to be feuding for the trios titles? Like, there's a couple things that need to be kind of cleared up, and I think we only got like 3 weeks now, so let's really get this thing moving starting next week. And by the way, I feel like this week's Dynamite is such a boomer bust show. Like, it could be really fun and awesome, or it could be a total train wreck. Because you have RVD versus Jack Perry, which that match could be like amazing, fun-wise. Like if it's a hardcore match and RVD hits all the hits, I think it'll be a very fun match. If he looks really old and busted and like there's their chemistry's way off and there's just like a bunch of botches, it's going to look pretty rough, right? And the same thing goes for the Hardys and the Young Bucks. Like if anybody's been watching the Hardys lately, it ain't been that pretty. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping with the chemistry that they have with the Young Bucks, they can kind of reunite that again and get somewhere with it. But I don't know. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow, but I also think it could be like a train wreck if things don't go well. Is also.
Yeah, well, I see some stuff in the chat here too. Mystery said Best Friends versus BCC is terrible. I disagree. I like the parking lot brawl a lot on Rampage. I rarely ever watch anything from Rampage anymore, but I watch that. I love the original parking lot brawl with Best Friends versus Santana and Ortiz also, who someone in the chat mentioned, Alexander actually mentioned that Santana and Ortiz could be coming back soon. And hopefully they're together. Like there was like apparently some weird like fallout between them, but hopefully they figure that out because they're a great tag team. You know, obviously. Remember when they were EYFBO, like that was like their indie tag team nickname.
And they became the new LAX or whatever. I used to hate them because I was like, you're not the real LAX. You can't take that name. Are you kidding me? But then they actually turned out to be honestly a better tag team than the real LAX. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah. And then they're always gonna like be a part of like because they were one of the first big surprises ever for AEW. Like when they debuted, when the Under the Hoods or whatever that they did.
Yep.
It was like a big reveal.
I think they had the Dead President's mask.
It might have been that because I know they definitely have used those. They've done the face paint a lot for that for sure. But that was
shout out to Point Break. Have you seen Point Break?
Mm.
Like 90s movie, Keanu Reeves, Patrick Swayze.
Oh, I know of it. Yeah, I know what the reference is though. But dude, go see the Charles Vegas, bro.
Listen, I'm just saying, like 90s movies all day long, and Point Break absolutely rules. Love Point Break. So, let's see. One more super chat. Thanks so much from the GOAT. Thoughts on Big E retiring and New Day's impact and legacy. So, is that confirmed? Did Big E retire?
I don't think it's confirmed, but there's a lot of speculation because he's apparently like they're considering him as a commentator soon and stuff. And I think there's some like, from what I understand, I believe he's saying that he's like feeling good and like ready to like make a return, and they're like not clearing him. So, you know how WWE can be
totally
with that
WWE. Yep.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is kind of bad news too. And I was listening to Sean Rossap on one of the Fightful things, and he was basically saying like Kyle O'Reilly's injury is the exact same injury that Big E has. And Kyle's been gone over a year. Kyle's last match was like June 7th of last year.
Dude, it was as they were like actually pushing him as a singles guy.
I know.
Beat Darby straight up on pay-per-view and everything.
Double or nothing. Yeah. And then like a little before that, like he was like the number one contender with Mox in the finals.
Yeah.
And he was like killing it in the Owen Hart tournament and everything, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. So I don't know, man. Like we might not see him back. Like, and that really sucks. But honestly, if it's over, like he had a hell of a career, and you know, I'm glad that he at least got to be in AEW for a while or whatever. But I personally think he's too motivated to not come back. Like I think he will try to come back, but I do think that, you know, and props to him too. He's been wrestling as a diabetic his whole entire like wrestling career. He's crazy. Like the matches he'll put himself through as a diabetic, it's unbelievable.
We're talking about Kyle O'Reilly, by the way, for anyone who might think like Big E. Like I was all starting to get confused for a second too because we were talking.
No, I'm going right back. I'm going back to Big E, but just
no. I was just saying people might think you're talking about Big E. Like Kyle O'Reilly is who does talking about like the diet like. He's talked about that, like how, like, I know you've talked about it too before, like just people who train with him and stuff, just talking about how like scared they can get because he goes so hard and like they know he has to be so careful about knowing where his blood sugar's at all times and everything.
He like checks it before a match, after a match. Like he's got it down to a certain system. Like, I mean, he's so dedicated. So especially like with Adam Cole being out and then coming back, like I feel like that's got to be big motivation for him too. Like I hope we haven't seen the last of him. Now, when it comes to Big E, hey, at least he won the world championship. He was basically the clear main eventer guy. I mean, granted, Kofi definitely won the title too, but like Big E was that guy that like could have been like the guy if like pushed right and all that stuff. Career fell a little bit short, but like one thing about New Day, man, like they were like a different level over. You know what I mean? Like they were like the Acclaimed in front of like 60,000 people. Like there were so many people that chanted New Day rocks and all that stuff. And they stayed like as a group for so long. You know what I mean? Like they deserve a lot of credit for that too. They all became stars, all helping each other. Like definitely nothing but good things for their legacy and what they did in the WWE. And they didn't have to necessarily be like in a stereotypical role. Like they made their own roles. You know what I mean? They were so much fun. They were able to do like what they wanted to do. And you could tell like it wasn't just like, here's your script, you're this, you're this, you're this. Like after a while, they were able to do what they wanted to do. You know what I mean?
It's funny that you say that, and I hope nobody takes this the wrong way, but this is just a really funny story. So one of my best friends I lived in Nashville. Shout out to my good friend, Jonathan Bodie. He's an African-American gentleman, and he was watching wrestling with me one night. And he grew up a wrestling fan. Like he was big on like Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage and the Ultimate Warrior and all that kind of stuff. Like he's a little older than you actually as well. Like he's probably like 8-9 years older than I am. And he saw the New Day come out like wrestling one night. Like I was watching Raw, and his first thing, he turned to me dead ass serious and he goes, "Who's making them do that?" Because he got mad about it. He was like, "Who's making those guys do that? Like, who's
making them throw pancakes in the crowd
with unicorn horns on, throwing pancakes and stuff?" And he was like got mad about it for a second. And I was like, "No, dude. Like before this, they tried to make
Crime Time.
Like one of those almost like kind of like the Nation Domination type vibes,
yes.
Like And I was like, they tried to do that initially, and then like, no, this is like their idea, and like listen to like the crowd." And like he came to me with me to an episode of SmackDown, I think it was at the time, at Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, and like the place went insane for the New Day. And like like once he realized like, oh, like this is that, like at first he thought, he was like, dude, like Vince McMahon's making these guys do this, like this is messed up. Then he was like, oh damn, like it's working and it's their idea. That's completely different. And I'll also say this, like Xavier Woods, I think should get a run with the title before he retires. All three guys just should, like, they should all go down as champions. I think at the end of the day, like for that group to have the lasting that it has, especially with the three of them never turning on one another. There was never like a big breakup and them coming back together. Like they've always been true to one another. They've always been friends. Like Kofi had his big moment. Big E had his big moment. I think Xavier deserves it just as much, like for like the longevity he's had. He's still very over, like, and and a lot of time when people think about the New Day, they think about the trumpet and stuff like that. Like, I mean, he's just as much of a part of the act as the other two guys are. So I want to throw that out there too, that I hope he gets a big push and title before he retires as well.
Consequences Creed.
Hell yeah, man, for sure. From Sprayberry, he went to Sprayberry High School.
I remember him as Consequences Creed filling in.
Yep. I remember him with Pac-Man Jones.
On Bound for Glory, I think.
Didn't he do something with Pac-Man Jones?
Yeah, the AJ Styles. Yeah, I think did he win the tag title? So he won Pac-Man won the tag titles with somebody. I don't know if it was Consequences Creed or not, but I just
Creed
remember
was,
that like
in X Division, like usually X Division type stuff. But
and he was dressed up like Apollo Creed back in the day. Like, those cool moments.
Yeah, actually, he was there live when he made his main roster debut. That happened to be in Nashville as well. and he wound up wrestling. I can't remember who he wound up wrestling, but he definitely made his debut that night because it was the show that Big E, just coincidentally, now I think about it, Big E won the Intercontinental title on that show from Curtis Axel, I believe. And I remember Xavier Woods making his main roster debut on that show as well. So yeah, got to see some pretty cool like early New Day stuff out there.
Yep. Did you ever go to any TNA shows?
I don't think I've ever gone to any that were like just TNA. I know I've been to like stuff that were like branded with TNA. Does that make sense? Like,
how about like pre-AJ, like after like AJ, like in TNA? Did you ever go to any of those before?
No, I wasn't living in Asheville at the time. And then I had a chance when I lived in Orlando and they're doing the Impact Zone, but I hated that area, like having to go to like Universal and all that stuff. Like it was just too touristy for me when I lived there. But
gotcha.
But anyway, no, I didn't. But I wish I lived there during the Asylum days. That would have been great.
Yeah. I think I went to 2 pay-per-views and like 2 house shows, I think is what I did for TNA. So yeah, I always had a good time. Like definitely, especially pay-per-view. Like it was a lot of fun. We got one more super chat from Alexander Fitzgerald. I appreciate it. This one, he's probably gonna get a lot of heat for, but I kind of understand where he's coming from. But we'll definitely talk about this. Hear me out. How would you feel about TK signing Ronda Rousey? Put her with Dan Lambert or put her in the BCC would be interesting. So here's the thing. I personally think that Ronda versus Juliana Pena is a big money match that the UFC should consider doing. Like, I think that that's probably the best like money women's match you could do. It could be very, I think it could still be competitive. If she wants to come back, that's the move. That's the move for sure. Because Juliana was on Tough when Ronda was a coach with Misha. So there's bad blood there. And you know how much trash Juliana talks, and it will set Ronda off. And I think Ronda needs a reset. Like, I think she needs people to care about her again, to like her again, because it's just not there right now, right? Like, I don't know if I've ever seen somebody come in as hot as she did and leave as cold as she did. But you know what's kind of funny? She did the exact same thing in MMA. Like, the exact same thing. She was absolutely beloved. And by the time that she left, everyone was just like, here's the door, you know? And then she would talk about how much it was like so much better. Pro wrestling fans were so much more nicer, and it's just a better environment than MMA fans. And MMA fans don't appreciate anything. And I promise you, Steven, if she goes back to the UFC, she is going to say the exact opposite. She is going to talk about how terrible pro wrestling fans are, how this was always her home, how much she misses it, how much she missed the fans, all that crap. And so I would not be surprised. I personally think Ronda Rousey is done with pro wrestling. I just don't think that I think she is either going back to UFC or watch out for PFL, man. They're kind of coming around because if they buy Bellator, you get Jake Paul, Francis Ngannou. If you can shell out the money to get Derek Lewis, which I think they could easily do if they really want to, now you're having Derek Lewis versus Francis Ngannou. That's pretty interesting. You get all of the Bellator with the PFL. Now you're talking about Cyborg versus what's her name? The one that just recently lost. It was all the hype back in the day. You could do that. Like there's some interesting fights there that you could make that PFL could get interesting, especially being on ESPN, having a bunch of money back behind it. We know Jake Paul can get hype no matter what. Like that kid is a hype machine. And if nobody wants to give him credit as a fighter, you've got to give him credit for getting buzz. Like this kid can make stuff really buzzworthy. So, I don't know, man. I just think it's interesting. When I saw that PFL is close to buying Bellator, and then they got Francis, they're gonna have Jake Paul. It's like, man, don't sleep on them. Like they could kind of be coming around where people just aren't expecting anything, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is pretty good. This is pretty good, you know. So just something to think about. But no,
Yeah.
I don't see her going to AEW. And honestly, I think if she did, I don't think she would get along with the women in the locker room. I think that would cause some drama. And I just don't see it, man. I really don't. But if you were to put her in the Blackpool Combat Club and not have her talk much and just kind of be like the badass of the female, you know, in the group, I think it would work. I don't think it would be too bad. I just think the problem with Ronda is she's such a star like worthy. She's not anymore, but she was, but she's going to command that same type of attention, money, all that stuff. And I just don't think it's worth it. But I will say this, and I really think that people need to understand, for everyone that loves the women's division, for everybody that loves women's wrestling and all that stuff, you would not have what you have if it wasn't for Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey really started the women's movement in MMA and in pro wrestling. She wasn't the first, but she became the biggest. And because of that, like the women's revolution in WWE really kicked off when Ronda got hot. So just keep that in mind. If you hate Ronda Rousey, but you love women's wrestling, you have to appreciate Ronda for that aspect.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Dana White was saying for years that he wouldn't even let women fight in the UFC until Ronda Rousey came around, and then he signed her, gave her the title, like made women's MMA a thing in the UFC. I mean, she's outside of Conor McGregor, she's the biggest star that the sport's produced. I mean, straight up.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and I think that she would work in a team like the Blackpool Combat Club. I think it would work fine. I really like the idea of her with Dan Lambert. I think the two of them would have massive heat together, and he's great at talking. Like, he'd be a perfect type of mouthpiece for her. Because I always felt like Ronda Rousey should have had Paul Heyman in the WWE talking for her. That would have been, if he could have talked about Ronda the same way he talked about Brock, I think that would have worked really well. And for whatever reason, they didn't do that. But yeah, I definitely think Ronda. I mean, I think Ronda. I do think she's going to go back and fight for the UFC because, you know, if Amanda Nunes isn't there, the difference between Ronda and the UFC and WWE, though, to be fair, is like in the UFC, she was still very popular when she left. Like, there was still, even when she lost to Amanda Nunes. I mean, obviously the big loss was to Holly Holm, and that match was humongous, that fight. But when she lost, by the time she lost to Nunes, it was like the whole. I remember all the video packages were really disrespectful towards Nunes because it was just all about the return of Ronda Rousey, and she was still like the A side of the show. Like, she's the pay-per-view draw and everything. And the difference was like she just kind of became like a heel in the UFC because of the way she responded to losing, but she never really like fell off popularity wise, really, to be honest. But in pro wrestling, she's just like completely fallen off. Like, I like even like the wrestling fans don't really seem to care that much about her. The MMA fans are like over it. Like, it just doesn't seem. It just kind of run its course in the WWE, at least. Maybe they could do something in AEW with her that would be interesting, like they had said in the super chat, which is interesting points to think about that potentially maybe happening. I think PFL is interesting too, like you said, because they're I mean, like they seemingly can really sign anyone they want to that's a free agent that's interested. So there's options there potentially for Ronda. Hey, if Ronda winds up in AEW, you know what I think they should do, Doug? They can do the only two people on their roster who have ever fought in the UFC could fight each other and see how that goes.
Oh, God.
That'd be a good one.
God.
But, you know, and outside of that, you know, this is off topic, but thinking of PFL and Jake, Paul, and Nate Diaz and all that stuff we just saw this past weekend, it was announced today that Logan Paul, who killed it at SummerSlam. Great job against Ricochet, as always. And I'm the Maverick pulling through once again. He's the
only Paul brother with a black eye.
Yeah, true. That's pretty wild. That's pretty wild. One guy did a fake scripted fight on pro wrestling against Ricochet and wound up with a black eye. The other guy fought a Diaz brother and it looks fine. That's wild.
Yep.
But they announced today that Logan's supposed to box Dylan Dennis. there's no way Dylan shows up to that fight. There's no way. And if he does, Logan's gonna beat the shit out of him. Like that guy is such a joke. But yeah, so that's all kind of interesting going on right now.
But I will say this too. I think this is a bigger strategy because if you get to Dylan, you get to Connor.
True.
And that's what I think is really what is about to happen is Connor will be there in Dylan's corner. Jake will go after Connor. And then the buzz will be so big that they're going to beg the UFC to let him out or do a co-promotion or something because it's going to go viral, right? Like, Jake's smart, man. I'm telling you, like, part of this. Also, Ariel had a really good conversation with one of, like, Jake's buddies. And, man, like, I wouldn't rule out Jake Paul and Logan Paul. Like, I feel like that they might fight. Because, like, Logan is on the undercard of KSI. Jake hates KSI, and I feel like it's really going to fracture. And I've heard that like Logan is taking kind of cheap shots at Jake, and Jake is taking cheap shots, and I'm just like, are they going to fight? Like,
well, I mean,
I think they're crazy enough to do it.
KSI are business partners with Prime, like that's like but I don't think that Jake and Logan would actually fight each other, to be completely honest. But like they are big enough clout chasers, and like it's all about the views and the money that like if the money was right and they knew they could both pull like 100 mil or whatever to like fight each other, like they wouldn't say no to that probably. And then who knows what kind of fight you'd actually wind up getting. Because Jake should destroy him. Like
because if you're Jake, like the game plan would be to go to KSI and then to Logan. I mean, dude, you are talking about an unbelievable amount of money and really facing no risk. Like that's just what's so crazy what he's done. But one thing I didn't give credit to Jake is his manager used to work for the UFC. So like when he left, like this was plotted. Who could we go after that can actually get buzz that you can beat? Like, and I feel like that this has definitely been the plan. But man, like you almost just have to take your hat off to him, man, because it's like, dude, there was like no buzz for Nate and Jake throughout the like build up of the fight. But dude, the week of the fight, it was like everybody was buzzing. They sold 17,000 tickets. Like they said that the crowd was insane. The energy was off the charts. There were people that were like, dude, we were at Spence and Crawford, and it was like just about the same, if not more, for Diaz and Paul, And so I don't know, man. Like you gotta give credit where it's due. And I just feel like, he's definitely like not everyone's favorite. And I mean, I don't necessarily love him. He gets on my nerves sometimes, but like I give him his props. And it's not like he's just faced like slouches. He has faced Anderson Silva and Nate Diaz and all these guys. And maybe they're not the best boxers, but there's still no walk in the park either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he legitimately beat Nate Diaz in boxing. He legitimately beat Anderson Silva in boxing. He knocked Tyron Woodley and Ben Askren into another dimension. Like, I mean, yeah, these are real fighters. I mean, they're not all professional boxers. That's the one difference. But Jake Paul was a YouTuber and TikToker. Like, I mean, like look what he came from. I mean, so yeah. And also definitely worth bringing up that Nick Diaz wants to avenge the loss. So hopefully they can put that together. Because dude, Nick's got better hands. Huh?
I've never heard him like kind of take a shot at Nate, but he kind of took a shot at Nate. Where he was just like, I'm better. I'm better than all these people that were in this ring tonight. Like I am the best. And like, don't forget who started this whole thing, And then like Ariel's giving him his props, and he's just kind of like looking around. He's like, yeah, that's what's up. Mm-hmm. And he had sunglasses on the whole time indoors, like Hollywood Diaz up in here. But one thing that I think that they really dropped the ball on is Ariel said there was a stare down between Nick and Logan and Jake and Nate at the end of their little mic session. He's like, I wish I would have got a picture of it. Because I'm like, dude, that is pay-per-view bonkers if you could pull that off with the Diaz brothers versus the Paul brothers.
Yeah, the older brothers versus the younger brothers. That's like that's you. Or you, I mean, you can mix and match it now since we already seen Jake and Nate. But like, I mean, you can also run that back. Like Nate didn't look like terrible in there either for a guy who isn't a traditional boxer who's never really done this before. Like, at least he didn't go out there and get tired. I mean, we didn't expect him to get tired, but like, you know, it's the same kind of thing though that we see with a lot of Nate MMA fights. To be fair, is like
it was about the same.
Yeah, by the end of it, you're like, okay, like he got hit a bunch. No one stopped him. If the fight went another 5 rounds, he'd still be going, and the other guy probably wouldn't because like he's just never gonna get tired. So he didn't really prove one thing or another. In his own mind, he didn't lose, and he made more money than he's ever made in his life. And they pretty much said, if we do this again, we'll do it in MMA. And Nate would kill him in MMA. So like, it's I mean, this was you know, and to be fair, Jake looked great. I mean, like it was a really smart game plan. He went to the body a bunch. He had Nate looked like he was hurt at the beginning of the fight. Granted, you can tell Nate was trying to gas him out. Like you can tell with some of the stuff he was doing, but like Nate's not trying to get hit in the face a bunch and in the body a bunch. Like Nate and Jake definitely beat him. I mean, straight up beat him in a boxing match, 10 rounds. I mean, so
there's another thing. Another thing I wanted to point out too is like everybody's like, wow, Logan Paul, what a great brother and all that, like coming to support his brother, taking a red eye to make sure that he makes it right. But at the same point, I was like, I think it's more about Logan being on 2 major events in the same night. Like where you're like, I just watched SummerSlam and then I just watched him on there too, where it's like the marketing of it, right? Like I was just on both, you know? And yeah, he was there to support his brother, but I don't know, man. If that thing flips, I could see it. I could see it happening where like it gets too much. And like, there's just a weird vibe between them sometimes. Like you think that they're not happy with each other, and then they kind of talk, and then it's like he'll show up and it's the greatest thing ever, and they love each other. And it's the best thing, and so like I don't know, but you know, it depends on how you view fighting too, right? Like a lot of these guys are fighting in like exhibitions and just like 8-round fights. Like if you're just like, I'll go spar my brother for 8 rounds and make it billions of dollars. Why not? You know what I mean? Now there's some there like I view fighting as like I'm going to try to kill you, and so I don't want to do that to my brother. It really just depends on how they look at it, right? Because Roy Jones and freaking Mike Tyson, everyone's thinking, oh, they're going to go throw down everything. It was a sparring session, and they made a ton of money, and it's the same thing that they could do with them. So I wouldn't be surprised.
And they did the whole like but everybody wins thing at the end, where like it was like a draw.
But yeah, exactly. Everybody's like, "Who's the winner?" There's like, there is no winner. They went to decision. Yay! And then like that was also the introduction of Jake too with Nate Robinson. Like that's where all this really started. So you know, there you go.
I remember back then being like, because like Jake had beaten Deji. That was his just like 2 YouTubers, and then when he fought Nate, I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. Like a YouTuber who has no real athletic professional background versus a guy who was like a legitimate NBA player, like a legitimate world-class athlete for a long time. And like still in comparison to most people, a beast of an athlete right now. And I was like, dude, I don't know if I think an NBA player would beat a YouTuber. It was like kind of my thought process. I was like, it doesn't really matter who it is. Like I think an NBA player is going to beat a YouTuber. And then after he flatlined him, and I was like, okay, no matter who you hit, if you hit them like that's gonna probably happen. Like even if you're a great fighter, and that's when I was really starting to be like, okay, this guy might be legitimate. And then ever since then, he's been. And even the Tommy Fury fight was close. It wasn't like he went out there and got his ass kicked by Tommy. And Tommy's an actual professional boxer. So I mean, anyway, y'all know I definitely respect y'all. Can think whatever you want about the Paul brothers, like. On a personal level, I get all a lot of the dumb stuff and stupid. There's get it if you don't like them, but like professionally, when like work ethic wise and like what they've been able to accomplish in boxing and in sports entertainment, and this kind of stuff, it's very impressive what they're doing, in my opinion. So,
yeah, I agree. Chris with the super chat, thank you so much, man. It says, even guys, you know the combat sports fan base is completely fragmented when you have boxing, UFC, and pro wrestling all running big shows head-to-head in the same weekend, and they all do well. Yeah, I mean, I just think, one thing, I was listening to the Bucks on Swerve's podcast, right? And they were doing an interview. And it's kind of sad, honestly, because you could tell, like if they didn't just sign their long-term deals, I would be concerned them just like wanting to quit wrestling, because they really seem like they're over a lot of this stuff. Like they just don't seem so passionate. And they even said, like, we're checked out, like we miss the fans and all that stuff, but like for our mental health and stuff, like we haven't been on Twitter for 3 years. We don't really look at any of the comments. We don't really put ourselves out there anymore to like meet and greets and all this other stuff. Like we just have to do this to for our own sanity at this point. And I'm just like, man, how bad did it have to get for them to feel that way? Like they were so, but like Matt said, like they were so about going viral, and always like if there was a moment, they'd immediately go try to sell a t-shirt and all this stuff, right? And like they just over it. They got burned out. They burned themselves out on it, So now it's much more just about like going out there, having a good show, and then like not even reading the comments. Was the crowd happy? Because they were saying that like Nick, he was upset because they didn't hit their mark on Blood and Guts. Like it went too short. They had a couple of minutes to spare, and that's why they were celebrating for a couple of minutes. And he was pissed off because he felt like that they blew it, and he was pissed off in the ring. And like Matt's like, dude, did you hear the crowd? Like everyone's happy. I'm going to Hawaii. Like I'm not worried about this. Like why are you stressing out about this stuff? He's like, you're right. But one thing that they were talking about, and it's so true. It's like, dude, like we just did Blood and Guts, and like it's over, and we're on to the next thing, and like nobody's talking about it anymore. And now it's about All In and All Out, and whatever. Like the way that we are now, we just can't stop and appreciate anything anymore. It is on to the next, no matter what. Like, and that I think doesn't necessarily, and that's one thing I've tried to do as a fan, is just like really appreciate what we get, because dude, guys are going to retire. This roster is not going to look the same. There's going to be things that all of a sudden, like we lost Adam Cole for like 8 months. Kyle O'Reilly's been gone a year. Like anything can happen to where it's all over for our favorites. So I really try to appreciate and enjoy it. But it really gave me a perspective too, where it's just like, man, like imagine being them, and like you're focused all this time on Blood and Guts, and you finally do Blood and Guts, and then it's people are just like, yeah, you're facing FTR at All In, and it's just like boom, 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 boom. I could see how that could just get like mentally draining, to where it's like you just can't stop and smell the roses. It's on to the next.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it too for them is like that they made it, like, so they don't really have to, which is fine. Like it's actually, I'd be the same way, to be honest. At least I would like to believe I'd be the same way, that like you're already like you are in a situation now that after grinding for decades, and having to do all those things to promote yourself and to sell your merchandise and to have that connection with the fans and to be noticed, when there was really only one real show in town for all, really WWE was really it. I mean, there was, obviously New Japan got really hot during their time there and stuff, and Ring of Honor, has had their times and stuff like that, and Impact and whatnot. But like, really, it's just been WWE, like up until AEW came around after WCW went down. And like, so it's one of those things where like they kind of had to do that to get to the point that they got to. But now they have, contracts where they make millions of dollars, and like they have families, and like they, like they're successful. And then also, I'm sure the everyday of like being an EVP and all the extra work that entails, and just all they've probably just been stretched super thin. And then on top of it, they have to go out there and perform, and they're expected to put on the best match on the show, being the Young Bucks. Like the expectations are always going to be super high for them to go out there and perform when they're out there. So I could understand, like, I feel like I'd like to believe I'd be the same way, where like, yeah, I'm not going to spend my time like being on Twitter all day, or like reading comments, or like, like when I'm at the show, it's almost like going back to what it was like before all the social media. Like you can kind of almost get back to being like you're in the 90s, where it's like you were only experiencing stuff, in front of you and around you again. Like your gauge for what's good and what isn't is like, okay, Is the person in front of me smiling? Like, this is great. Like, the fans are cheering. This is great. My career is going good right now. I'm making good money. The people around me are happy. Like, the fans like me or whatever, booing me or cheering me or whatever. And like that's all they need. And then they spend the rest of the time with their families. Like, I think that's great. So yeah, good for
yeah. And then on top of it too, that they said like we don't care about being the best in the world anymore. We don't care about having the greatest matches. Is like what we are most proud of is there are people that, you know, in this wrestling business, there's 100 more jobs out there that they never got to have. You know what I mean? And so because they were able to start this company, guys are getting paid more than they ever were going to get paid before. And I mean, and it's not even just like the wrestlers have jobs. It's referees, it's cameramen. It's so many different people have jobs because they decided to go on this adventure and it actually worked. You know what I mean? So like, that's really what their legacy is going to be about. Not just that though. I mean, they're great, right? Like I think when it's all
best
said and done,
of all
they're going
time,
down
honestly,
as
in
one of the
my
greatest.
opinion. Yeah. I think they're the best I've ever seen.
It depends on what you like, but I don't think you're ever going to find a catalog of matches that are better than the Young Bucks' career. Like when it's all said and done, those Young Buck matches will stand the test of time. Like unbelievable stuff. So, but so let me think of the three main topics I picked: SummerSlam, MJF, Cole, and All In, and the Elite assigned their extension. So let's just talk real quick about the Elite signing the extension. I just think it's great. I think that when you have those, like, you can't afford to lose those guys to the WWE. I think it's more the WWE's gain of just taking it away from AEW than actually using those guys, right? Because I don't think necessarily they would have used all of them properly or whatever, but to be able to have all of them in AEW, I just think it's huge for the company. And it also shows that it can't be too bad over there. You know, like if you were just so miserable or you hated all the people you worked with or whatever, you probably aren't signing a 4-year deal. You know what I mean? So I just think that that's a good sign. They'll continue their EVP roles as well. So I guess Tony's happy with that also. So overall, I just think it's a huge home run for AEW. To me, it's the one that you really had to be worried about with the company's longevity if they couldn't get that deal done. And so since they got that deal done, I think they're in really good shape. I mean, now it's just what MJF's going to do and kind of go from there. But overall, I think it's been really good. And it's curious. Like if you're Ricky Starks, are you going to the WWE? Because like AEW's kind of giving you that push now, you know, like guys that I thought for sure would probably leave. I don't know if they would leave. And then to me, like on the other side, Drew McIntyre, he sure looks like a guy that could possibly bounce. Like I don't know. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how this whole thing plays out. But your core is still there, right? You've got the Elite. So I think that's huge.
Yeah. Well, and I think, you know, and this could be part of like the Young Bucks kind of like checking out in certain ways too, could kind of tie into this. But like, you know, we've talked about it plenty, but like AEW, I'm sure right now looks much different than what they were expecting it to look like when they started the company. And it's possible, and that's for a lot of reasons, but like the main one being like when the pandemic happened and big names like Adam Cole and CM Punk and Bryan Danielson and so many others like became available or interested. Like if you're Tony Khan, you'd be insane not to go after those talents. Like you have to. So like I get why they've done what they've done. I think AEW is an awesome company, great product. I would have made the same moves myself. But like if you're the Elite, you're probably looking at this as EVPs and you've already seen Cody leave, and you're like, okay, like this is way different than what we kind of signed up for, but maybe they've worked some stuff into where like they're staying as EVPs, staying for the next 4 years or whatever. And maybe that's also why we're seeing, you know, teams like the Best Friends kind of getting elevated again, like Ricky Starks getting pushed. Like maybe like part of this is like, listen, we'll stay and we want to keep being EVPs and we'll continue to like do the best we can to like, this is our company. But like, we also need to keep in mind, like we have a bunch of names, but like the original view of it, like this was like for people who didn't get those chances in the other companies, and like we do have a lot of homegrown. Like they just re-signed the Dark Order, for instance. Like hopefully they do something with the Dark Order then. You know, like they're I feel like if Joey Janela I know you're not a fan, but like I think if Joey Janela did like, because apparently that was his own decision. He didn't get released. His like contract came up, and he was just like, I'd rather go to GCW, go back to the Indies. They're not really doing anything with me, so like I'm better off doing my own thing. But I think if he wanted to stay, he'd be one of those guys. I think there's certain like kind of like legacy hires from AEW that like will continue to get re-signed because like they were day one wrestlers with the company, day one just people with the company. And there is a sense of loyalty there. Because also with a lot of these wrestlers that took a chance day one, they went through the whole thing of all these other wrestlers have for all these years of like, someone's going to start up a wrestling company. Some guy with money's going to do wrestling, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And the ones who actually took that leap to be like, you know what? I believe in this. Like I'm down day one with no guarantees, knowing you're probably going to burn a bunch of bridges with whatever company you want to work with, or maybe we're working with, or whatever, to go to do this with AEW in the complete unknown. Like, I think that's why, like, in that, so maybe that's part of this, and that's maybe like wishful thinking on my part, but I'm hoping that a part of the Elite staying is also contingent on like, obviously you have to do stuff with Danielson, you have to do stuff with Mox. I mean, the Mox is basically day one too, but he obviously was very popular pre AEW. Like, but then maybe like, okay, like the Best Friends also have been day one. Like, let's do more with them on AEW. Like the Dark Order has been day one with AEW. Let's do more with them. So like, hopefully we get more of that. Is kind of where hopefully what I'm thinking. So
also, like, I mean, when they started this company, I mean, in my wildest dreams, I would have never, ever thought the people that have walked through that door walk through that door. Like, I just never would have thought if I got one, right? I got Bryan Danielson, right? All right, great. I'm not getting CM Punk, right? Oh, I'm getting CM Punk, and I'm getting Adam Cole, and I'm getting Kyle O'Reilly, and I'm getting Swerve, and
Samoa Joe.
Keith Lee, Samoa Joe, Will Ospreay has shown up multiple times. Like,
Sting,
Sting, RVD, Kota Ibushi, like just
Nick Gage.
Nick Gage, right? Like, I would have never, ever guessed that when it first started, and like the main core was the Elite and like Jericho and Moxley. And I thought like that's about as good as we're gonna get. And then we're gonna clean out the indies. That's what I thought we were gonna get. And man, I mean, it's been a wrestling fan's like dream of a dream, like in the wildest of dreams. And the great thing is when those dreams get achieved, you raise the bar, right? And then it's like, okay, now what's next, And that's the thing, like with All In, 80,000 tickets are close to being sold, And it's like, you got to top that. What's next? It's wild. So
it's
awesome.
It's pretty wild how, like, when you think about when AEW started, just how different the conversations were about like the future of the company and the talent involved and stuff. Because like when like AEW started, for instance, like you had obviously you had a lot of the indie talent, like you said, and like some names that were like bigger than others, obviously, and stuff. But like, for instance, like MJF, I was a big MJF fan of his indie run, but most people didn't even know who he was pre-AEW, and now he's the AEW World Champion. But you kind of saw that coming, like once you realized how good he was, you're like, oh, I could see them going all the way with him eventually, and they did, which is awesome. But then you had like Mark Quinn from like Private Party. I remember people being like, he's a real standout, like because the roster was so not necessarily thin, but it was just so wide open that it was like, Mark Quinn. I remember people being like, he might be like a big singles star, like Scorpio Sky could become like the champion. Like there was like all and that's the kind of stuff also that I'm kind of talking about really changed when you get all these other big stars, which I'm not blaming AEW for once again, but it'd be kind of they've done a good balance of it too, though, in AEW, to be fair, when it comes to certain titles and stuff. Like, they have a good mix, because like even like Orange Cassidy, once again, I was aware of him for a long time, but like most people discovered him in AEW, and I'd argue he's the best champion AEW's ever had. Like if you look at one singular title run that in the company, like all these title defenses, all the matches are bangers, and like he's doing it with a quote unquote comedy gimmick, and he's quote unquote super undersized, but it doesn't matter because like people are into the gimmick and he makes it work for the way that he wrestles, and like the matches are great. You know,
I would have never, and I give AEW so much credit for making that guy a star. Because I mean, I remember being at an indie show and all that, but like that's not what he's doing. That was over. What was over is him literally not really wrestling, just a very little bit at the end or whatever to kind of like pull off a match. But like all of a sudden, he was able to leave that gimmick and not be the guy that just threw just slow kicks and whatever else, like, and not try in the ring and become like a total workhorse and still keep all the fans, gain respect, and like be one of the top guys. Because I promise you, Vince McMahon could not get Orange Cassidy over. He couldn't do it. I really don't think that they would know how to use him. And I don't think that they would give him enough time or credit or whatever to let him get over. So, like, there are certain guys that TK has really gotten over that has impressed me because I thought they'd be dead in the water. And Orange was one of those guys. Like, when it was Orange and Pac and it was a good match, like, I thought that was basically one and done. And then we had like an Orange Cassidy Jericho feud, and like, it's like Orange Cassidy Adam Cole, and Orange is like in the title picture, like Kenny Omega and Pac and stuff. And like, man, like props to them. And like we had the international title, Pac had it, people didn't care about it. This title sucks. It's a waste of time. Why do we have this title?
Pretty much just created too many titles. It was a forbidden door. They just like created out of the blue, pretty much. Just right. That, it felt like, yeah.
And now Orange has had it, and that thing has so much credibility, and like it's the workhorse title, and like it's really impressive. And I don't believe a lot of people give TK enough credit for that. You know what I mean? So.
And only a smart mark lifelong fan like TK would even get it enough to try it on national television. Like, and that's where we got to give someone like Tony Khan so much credit, and why I love Tony Khan so much. Like, there are things about Tony Khan that I disagree with him on and stuff, and certain things I wouldn't do, but I agree like 98% of like where I'm just like when I put myself in his shoes, I'm like, dude. Do you like that's so sick that you get to do this? Like you're like my age and we joke about it all the time. He gets to do his figure fed on national television. Like it's the coolest thing of all time. And like he almost always exceeds my expectation and delivers on what I want out of his product. But once again, that's the whole thing is like that's why it's so different. Like you said, WWE wouldn't know what to do with him. It's not just that WWE wouldn't know what to do with him. Almost nobody with the access to getting someone on national television would have any idea what to do with Orange Cassidy. The one guy that does, one of us is Tony Khan, and he did know what to do. And that's like what separates him.
Well, and like, dude, if RVD came out to his TNA music, Rob Van Dam.
Oh, right, like, the TNA, right. No, that was right.
It would not have near the impact. But when Jerry Lynn is saying, here's a guy, and he comes out to the ECW walk, like that completely is a game changer. And not only that, you could feel the like ECW vibe. Hearing that music, Rob Van Dam, like it was awesome. Like you forgot that Rob's like 52 and he's probably going to be a train wreck tomorrow. But like for that moment, it was just like, wow, this is incredible, you know? And Bill was like, oh my God, I am marking out right now. Like,
he like retweeted like my tweet about it too, I think. Like,
But it's like, it was funny though, because there was like a pretty strong rumor Rob Van Dam was going to be there. And there was a guy on Twitter that messaged me. He's like, how likely you think it is that TK is going to have him come out to walk? And I'm like, dude, he's one of us and we want it. So it's very likely. And I think it's going to happen. And then there it is. And I'm just like, Vince would never understand that, you know, just like Nigel McGuinness, that keeps hitting that he's going to be at All In.
So he's in fighting shape and flex some muscles.
Right. I know. And it's like, Vince wouldn't understand why we would be so excited to have Nigel McGuinness wrestle, but like Tony Khan gets it. That's the difference. And Disco and all these other guys are like, it's smart, Mike. You you're only catering to smart marks and all this stuff. And it's like, dude, like that's a huge portion of the audience. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I appreciate TK so much for those things, because it's like the little things that I think, and honestly, in wrestling, in my opinion, what gets guys over, what really like makes people stand out are the little things. Like, I will give you an example. Shawn Michaels, right? He just looked like a total pretty boy, like just basically a boy band type guy, right? But he was a badass in the ring when it needed to be. And like, I remember like The Undertaker came out and Shawn Michaels got in his face and chewed bubble gum. And I was just like, how badass is Shawn Michaels? Like, he is not afraid to throw down with The Undertaker, and he still keeps this cocky attitude. And it's like, just the simple fact of him chewing bubblegum in Taker's face made me think like, holy crap. And like, really, honestly, that's what got like Tito Ortiz so over for me, because I couldn't believe the trash talk and how cocky he was and everything against Ken Shamrock. And Ken Shamrock's like totally flipping out. But then come fight time, this dude just comes out to Limp Bizkit with fire going everywhere, and he just rips his shirt off and throws it over the cage, jumping all over the octagon, ready to just kill someone. And then he went there and he completely destroyed Ken Shamrock. And I was just like, oh, so like he can be an entertainer, but like he's a legit badass too. Like that's different. I didn't expect that, you know? So like that it's when you can kind of go with both realms, right? Almost like Jake Paul, for example, right? You look at that kid and you're like, what a cocky idiot moron. And then he goes and boxes and he does well. And it's just kind of like, okay, I got to give him his respect. And that's happened so many times in MMA too, right? And fighting in general, like guys that you would never think are going to be like a badass or whatever. And then all of a sudden they show up in the octagon. You're just like, oh my God, this is a completely different person than what I thought he would be. You know, sometimes like Robbie Lawler never showed emotion in any interviews or anything. He's just like, yeah, it should be a good fight. You know, he can say what he wants. We'll see what happens. And like, that's it. And then he would get in the cage and just become a total animal, like just go crazy in there. And I just think that like the little things is what really matters. It is the music. It is how you come about. Like the Swerve video with Nick Wayne, like that is going to be huge for his character. He came across as such an evil dude, and it works because he's great in the ring. But if he can add multi-dimensions like that, that's what makes you a star. So I hope we see more of that. And already I feel like AR Fox feels so much more valuable than he has since he's debuted in AEW. He's not just the spot monkey guy anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so yeah, some of that stuff, like for one, you got like Disco Inferno and stuff that say like AEW is just like a niche, like smart mark product. Like anyone who says that, whether it's true or not, to be completely honest, like just look at Wembley, like 80,000 seats sold. Like there's like, you know, even if that is only smart marks, which it isn't, I mean, it's a lot of people, but even if it was, then so what? Like there's an audience large enough to support the product. So whether, I mean, even if it is all smart marks, which it isn't, but even if it was, who cares? Like we're getting a great product. The company's succeeding. Like, okay, great. When it comes to Rob Van Dam, I think you're underselling. My expectations for Rob Van Dam are actually pretty high. Like he was wrestling at a fairly like relatable or comparable level to like what he used to when he was in Impact just a couple years ago. Like he can still do the stuff you would like expect him to be able to do. He threw a good like spinning roundhouse kick that missed.
Yeah, he did.
And missed Jungle Boy. So like I think he's gonna do just fine out there. And you know what I mean? He self-heals, he does all the stretching and all that stuff. Like he probably got his body, you know, all the workouts I'm sure he's doing with Katie Forbes and their friends and stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
So you know, I think he's staying in good shape.
Day.
Yeah, he's the man. My hero. He's your hero. He's your screen name.
Yeah, for sure. I will say, there was a match that he had at Slammiversary 4 or 5 years ago against Moose. It was pretty good. Like it was pretty good. Like he didn't look bad at all. So I'm not necessarily I just can't hype it up, right? Like I don't want to be a letdown. So I'm kind of expecting the worst and hoping for the best is kind of the way that I'm going into this.
Yeah.
So
also I'll mention for the Swerve thing though, like I definitely agree with that because that does a lot for Swerve and AR Fox, and it's good because they have the history, the two of them in like Lucha Underground, the whole weapon of mass destruction match, whatever they called that thing.
Insane match.
Yeah. Yeah, that was great. That was one of the biggest things Lucha Underground probably ever did. And Lucha Underground was a show that I enjoyed. Like I thought it was a good wrestling product, like the story and everything. It was a good alternative wrestling show in my opinion. But I think like the mobile embassy stuff, like really it hit a whole nother level, like with that segment. And also is getting over Nick Wayne super fast too, is like sympathetic. This you're like, how could you make a kid who just turned 18 years old, still like a kid, still an actual teenager, and he's bleeding buckets because of this attack, and like you were close with like like you came to the Buddy Wayne, basically the training, the spot of Buddy Wayne, with you got Nick in there doing his thing and training and stuff, and like you're basically walking into this guy's home doing a home invasion, and like and we saw it happen, like that was like the vibes of it, and it was like, and that's great for a heel faction for Swerve and AR and those guys. I mean that's exactly. They got across the vibe, like the exact vibe I feel like they needed to, like for what they're going for. And then it's going to be great because then you'll get Darby and Nick Wayne teaming up, to fight these guys off. I'm sure Nick Wayne can get to he'll put the face paint on, get to team with Sting. Like that'd be pretty cool. So yeah, I mean they accomplished a lot with that, and it was a really well done, like the way it was shot and everything. That was a really good that whole segment I thought was super effective.
Yeah, no, it was definitely really good. I liked it a lot. But yeah, he and like Prince Nana has always been really talented too. I like him as a manager. I just think that they just need more. They just don't need to be looked more as like we'll use them when we use them. Like they need to be a every week type of segment that we see of these guys. Not necessarily it has to be a segment, but we need to see them weekly to like really not lose momentum. You know what I mean? Yeah. I thought it was really cool though. It was good.
So,
and guys, if you haven't, make sure you smash that like button. I would definitely appreciate it. It looks like we recovered from disaster and we were able to do the stream, which I'm very grateful for. So thank you guys for all being here. We still have SummerSlam that we need to cover.
Yeah, I was going to say mainly there's a few SummerSlam things that we need to definitely cover. I could probably do about another 20 minutes or so before I have to crash to get ready for the shoot job in the morning. Working so much.
No problem.
Overtime. But yeah, the main thing out of SummerSlam I think people want to hear me talk about, or us talk about, is going to be first of all, we'll talk about Cody in a second, Cody and Brock, because obviously like that was big, and Cody is like clearly the next guy. Like it's very clear at this point, which is great to see. But I also thought that heading into WrestleMania last year, so or this year, whatever you want to call it. But okay, more importantly than the LA Knight win, okay? That's what I think people really want to hear me talk about. So LA Knight won the Battle Royal. He won the Slim Jim Battle Royal. The night before on SmackDown, I didn't see this, but I heard that he had botched like a superplex attempt. I guess he like tried to like jump up to the top rope and slipped off the ropes or something. And then he like redeemed himself by like he did it in the Battle Royal match. He did the same spot and like almost slipped, but hit it. So like he did it, and he hit his moves. The LA Knight people's elbow and stuff. And I mean, my brother saw him do that little like it's not even a stunner, but it looks like a stunner kind of thing. It's like stunner, but it's not.
Stroke. It's like the Jeff Jarrett stroke mixed with the stunner, kind of something like that.
And like anyone who I had two friends that I was watching that with, and everyone was like, that was a really bad looking move. Like that was really weird. Like that was a bad move. Now that all said, he wins the thing. Yep. He does a promo after the match that aired on, I don't know, I saw it on Twitter, and it was like a backstage interview, and it was like a minute and a half long. And I tweeted about it because I was like, I really need to even watch this. I can tell you right now what he's going to say. Let me talk to you. He's just going to mention, he's going to explain what a battle royal is and make some sort of reference to Randy Savage, and then say, with everybody saying LA Knight, yeah. And sure enough, that's literally exactly what the promo was. Now, that said, we get to Monday. The Miz comes out and completely roasts him, right? Like tears him up. Like, it's saying a lot of stuff that I've been saying for weeks, right? I mean, like verbatim. I'm like, and now a big thing that I've been saying about LA Knight, though, throughout this whole process is I have to reserve, obviously, I can't say I have to reserve judgment because I've been roasting the guy, but like, I've been saying all along, I need to see how he does when somebody is going back and forth with him. It's one thing to just come out and blurt out a bunch of catchphrases. It's another thing for somebody to challenge you and say stuff to you and roast you. And how do you actually respond to that? I will say this. He did fine on Monday. Like, people aren't expecting me to say this. He did fine on Monday. He legitimately did. Like, he held his own with The Miz. I think if it was up to me, like, I think The Miz won the round 10-9 personally. But I think LA Knight did enough, honestly, in that promo where I was like, listen, there's a lot of the low-hanging fruit stuff. A lot of his stuff just doesn't make sense as he's saying it. Like, because at some point he's just going to, like, even to get into his catchphrases, he's always forcing with everybody saying into what he's saying. We're like, everyone, you know whose game it is. Like, it's always trying to like throw these little things into it. It's just putting a hat on a hat on a hat. But he had enough substance on Monday, and he's over enough with the crowd. What I'm a little worried about, though, is like, not worried, but like, they're gonna call this whole thing the Yeah movement, and obviously the Yes movement with Daniel Bryan is. I don't see this as the same thing. But you can tell that's what they're trying to kind of get to. But to be fair, I'm gonna keep it real. I thought he did fine on Monday. He did way better on Monday with The Miz than I expected him to on the microphone. At the end of the day, the Bell's still got a ring and he's still got to produce. And like they'll do a Miz versus LA Knight match, and I don't have super high expectations for that. But if they can have a decent match with one another. And I'm not going to put any blame on The Miz, by the way. And I know Miz isn't the best worker in the world, but The Miz has you don't have this kind of longevity in this game without being great at what you're doing. The Miz is great at what he does. The Miz is like, he will have good matches with good wrestlers. He cuts fantastic promos. He's been over for decades. Like, The Miz is the man. So the kind of the problems I had with like the promo from LA Knight was really more along the lines of him saying, like, for instance, so LA Knight said something like, hey, you aren't like me because I am somebody who you can't mess with. Back when you were coming up in this business, we all know the stories of you getting kicked out of the locker room and not standing up for yourself and running away and changing in the bathroom and all that stuff. But I would never do that. And my kind of response to something like that would be, if I was The Miz, in which this is all scripted and this is made to make LA Knight look good. I get that in the segment. But like, bro, you didn't have the chance because you weren't in the W. Like, I guarantee you, if you were in the Miz's shoes and you were in that same spot in the locker room and Chris Benoit and JBL are bullying you, you would have walked out of the locker room just like he did and did whatever you could to keep your job. Like, you're sitting here and telling me you would challenge those guys being a rookie in the game. You're gonna get in JBL's face. Like, come on. So like, that kind of stuff. But I get it. Like, he's supposed to be like the fearless baby face. He's super over. The fans are chanting with him. He's getting pops. So I want to keep it real. Like, I don't love the guy, but he held his own on Monday enough that I'm like, okay, let's see where it goes. If this leads to like a US title type scenario, an upper mid card type scenario, I'm fine with that. Continue to test this out. If he continues to stay this over and gets more over, and he can have like okay to good matches, okay, maybe we got something here. But I think a lot of what The Miz was saying true too. We've seen a lot of flashes in the pan. This to me still comes off very much like Rusev Day, but maybe it's more than that. And I'm willing to let it play out.
I would say if he was 33 years old, then he would be in a real position to be one of the top guys if that's what they wanted to do. The fact that he's 40 definitely pushes him back. And I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying I know how that company thinks. And they're just not going to put a ton of investment into him at 40 years old. I just don't see that happening. But I will say, I've seen guys also get hot and then like it's lightning in a bottle, right? Where like they just keep advancing and then like they have no other choice but to put them in a certain position. I don't know. But let's go on and talk about first of all, I got a lot of heat from some buddies in a group chat that I said the WWE 100% did Cody and Brock as the second match to hurt Collision's ratings. I don't think that is. I think the point is okay. You tuned in for Logan and Ricochet to start it off, and now I'm keeping you to keep watching because now I'm giving you the second biggest match on the card, and I'm putting it in the second match. And then if you've watched that much, you've almost watched an hour. And then you're likely not just going to tune into the next hour of Collision. You're just going to be like, you know what? I'll just catch it on DVR. I'm just going to go ahead and finish watching SummerSlam. So I think that personally it was a strategy to affect it. People are like, they're not worried about AEW. They don't think about AEW. Dude, they do think about AEW. Any way that they could hurt AEW, they're going to do it. Like, I'm not saying they're booking SummerSlam to hurt Collision or anything like that. But when they're looking at the match card and they're like, we're going head to head with these guys, what would be the best way to like make sure people don't tune into the other show? I think that's what they did.
That'd be really funny too if like that all stems from like them having that conversation and Cody being the one to be like, wait a second, I have an idea. Right. It's actually Cody's idea. It's like, wait a second, guys. Like, if I went on, like that's my audience. Like they'll just tune in for me instead.
Yep. And that's honestly true though, right? Like if you're there, like that's what I did. Like I'm not watching a tag team match or something over Cody and Brock.
I'm not watching anything except for Cody and Brock.
Yeah, I don't know about that. For me, so I thought the match itself, like you take away who the people are in it, especially Brock for me, like it was a good match. It's fine. I just hated how predictable it was. We all knew Cody was going to win. This was just and I feel like that's what the whole show was. It was just really predictable. We knew what was going to happen. And because of their stubborn ass and because they didn't want to give Cody the title, they have booked themselves into a stalemate where they have to basically tread water all the way till WrestleMania because they didn't want to give Cody the title the first time. Because if you gave Cody the title the first time, all this is avoided. Now you have to break up the Usos. Now you have to figure out a way to keep things going where Roman isn't going to wrestle very much and he's just going to kind of coast his way all the way till WrestleMania. Now you got to figure out what to do with Cody. And like, okay, Cody's clearly the American Nightmare has finally arrived. And it's like, this is such bullshit. Like the fact that you basically are saying everything that Cody did not matter until he could conquer Brock Lesnar. And now we are and it's so cheesy that you have to feed that line into Michael Cole. Hey, make sure, let the crowd know now Cody has arrived because now it's official. Now we can actually push him and he can be the second biggest star in the company, basically. Like, just stupid. He is right now with Roman. I will say that. Roman is the first big, but he's getting there. Don't get me wrong. Calm down. But I will say, and it's the way that they push him too, right? Like Roman is going to be the tribal chief. He's going to be undefeated, blah, blah, blah. Cody, right. We'll see what happens.
Well, and the big problem with Roman too, like I shouldn't say the big, but there's a lot of problems with like I agree with everything you're saying, obviously, but like I ironically enough, I said this, swear to everything that my friend Michael Hughes was sitting there watching SummerSlam with me, and I turned to him and I was like, dude, one of my biggest fears is that something will happen to Roman before WrestleMania. Like he's going to get hurt or something's going to happen where like the title change doesn't happen. And they'll have to change plans or have to vacate the title or like something will happen. And sure enough, turns out the Roman got injured during the match at SummerSlam. Now, apparently it's not a big deal and it's apparently not going to change anything. But you always have to keep that in mind too. Cody could get injured again. Roman could get injured again. Like you can't just like be just so sure that things are going to go off as planned, in March or April or whatever, beginning of April of next year. Like, so trust me, I'm still like, I think the plan is for Cody to win at WrestleMania, but there's a lot of things that can go super wrong. And also, the more that I like this is playing out, the more I'm thinking, I think it's possible Cody is going to win that belt from Rollins, and they'll do Cody with that belt versus Roman with all his titles and like consolidate everything once and for all at WrestleMania, maybe.
Yeah. And at that point, I think Cody could be just as big of a star as Roman in even the hardcore WWE's eyes, like the fans, the universe, like to have hit that long. Let's say Cody wins the title and he carries it for 6 months. Roman's had his title for a while, but like, let's say that, Cody's been undefeated. Roman's been undefeated. Like they're going to sell this thing huge. I get it. But at the same time, I don't know, man. I kind of feel like they're just going to kind of coast this thing. Cody is not going to have very many matches. Roman damn sure isn't going to have very many matches. And they're just going to try to get to Mania to avoid the injury bug and everything else. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Cody wrestles just a couple of times a month, if that. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're going to do, but
they got to keep him on the show though every week because we're all 100% wrestling or not because he's the. I know I was there in Atlanta and it's a biased crowd, but like you can hear it everywhere. Like he's the draw. Like business
Roman
is
Reigns.
Roman Reigns, but he's helping massively.
Roman Reigns isn't on Raw, and Raw is still a very high performing show. It's Cody Rhodes. Like Cody has become a massive star for them. So
and other guys are over too. Like Rollins is super over. Like he comes out like they are. I mean they have a good like core. And Cody talked about this recently too. He's like the big difference between me now and like the company now than like when I left is all the guys who were like kind of the rookies and like the kind of newer guys like Rollins and Owens and these guys. Now they're veterans. So like we're all on just a completely different level now. And now it looks like they're pushing Shinsuke Nakamura again, which I'm always down for. Like, they haven't done enough with him the entire time pretty much he's been in the WWE. So like I watched Raw all the way through last night for the first time in a really long time. I watched the whole thing. And honestly, I thought it was a good show. There's definitely stuff I could do without, but like for a 3-hour show, I was entertained by like, at least half of it, like, which is not normal for Raw. Normally it's just like Cody and then like I'm totally uninterested in everything else. I thought it was a pretty solid show. And like, you can see like in that world title mix, it's like, Rollins is the champion, but their main challengers right now is like Balor still is in the mix. Priest has the Money in the Bank.
Yeah.
Obviously Dominic is like mega over, but he's like, but or as a mega heat. You have Shinsuke now in that mix. I feel like there was someone else that I'm missing too. Sami Zayn's doing his thing too, but like Owens is hurt. But the point is they have like a good core of like challengers and stuff there. Like it's a good, and then dudes like and Gable's getting over too. Like Chad Gable, I didn't realize like how much he's really progressed like with the fans. And Otis as well. They're still a tag team, but I think Gable is the number one contender for the IC title. And him and Gunther had like a pretty good match, I think, a couple weeks ago, and they'll have like a really good one probably soon for the title. So they are doing. There is a lot to be positive, and part of this comes with. I'm not just blaming or giving Cody all the credit, but like there seems to be like somewhat of a shift in like all of this right now, and Triple H I'm sure is a big part of it, and like just there's. It isn't like watching AEW every week. Like you're not getting that same level of just consistent banger after banger after banger after banger like AEW does. But there was enough meat on the bone on Monday where I was like, damn, if it was like this every Monday, I'd probably tune in again, like pretty consistent. So
I think the 3-hour thing is rough too. Like if they could just have if it was a 2-hour show, that would be a lot easier.
Total game changer if it was only 2 hours. I completely agree. Especially when you're there live, because when you're there live, they also do the main event beforehand.
Yeah, it's a long night. Before you leave, I just want to know your thoughts on the Bloodline, because in my opinion, dude, when Jimmy revealed himself, first of all, so obvious. And when he revealed himself, I just don't think the crowd reacted the way that they wanted. I just don't feel like that was as big of an impact. And not only that, I almost feel like the crowd knew that was probably going to happen and didn't want it to happen. Like, I feel like it was rushed, and it, to me, it is just a blatant, like, we don't really have an ending to this. We don't know what we're doing. We're going to have to just like keep changing it up because this thing was supposed to be done a long time ago. And now it's getting goofy because, I mean, we could see them feud and then reunite. Solo could turn on Roman, or Jimmy could turn on Solo. And I mean, like, it just can go on and on. And I just feel like when Sami Zayn hit Roman Reigns with that chair at Royal Rumble, it's one of the loudest pops I've ever heard, ever. And like, I feel like if Jimmy turning heel was done right, it should have been very close to something like that in a shock value. And there was a point where he just stood there and like it was silent. And he just didn't really know what to do. Like, are we supposed to keep going? And then he super kicks him. And it was just kind of like, no, like, this isn't what we wanted. What are y'all doing? You know? And then it's like, okay, so now it's going to be Jimmy and Jay at Payback. So, I mean, I'm sure it'll be a great match, but Roman's not going to wrestle. Roman probably won't wrestle till Survivor Series, in my opinion. Maybe a Saudi Arabia show. I think they have one in October or something. Wouldn't be surprised if he does that. But I feel like people are very, very attached to the Bloodline. They've been saying it's the greatest storyline of all time, especially the modern day fans. But to me, man, this thing has peaked and it is on fumes and it is not as interesting as it was at all. And I don't know how many times family members have to turn on each other and how many times like people need to be reunited. I just feel like at this point, this is starting to become an L if you're going to keep dragging this out. And if you drag it out all the way till Mania, I just don't know if there's going to be enough there. And if the goal is to completely eliminate the Bloodline to where they're not even a factor and it's just Roman Reigns going in there against Cody, I don't know if that works either. Like, I feel like as much of a peak as that was, just to destroy it and then just move on and just have Roman take the pin, he goes away. And it's like, what happens with the Bloodline? Does Cody win the title and then like feud with Jey Uso? You know, like, I just don't know. I don't really see the road to this thing because it was really interesting when Sami Zayn was involved. And when Sami got out, that's when this thing should have started to go. And like I said, if Cody wins the title, the whole thing falls apart. And the thing that's so frustrating is because Roman had to maintain the title, there is absolutely no like unpredictability in any of this. We just have to sit here and just like watch these long drawn out matches of like 35, 40 minutes. Roman's entrance is like 10 minutes alone. And then there's a lot of talking and it's storytelling. And there's like false finishes at the end. And I get it, but like, I'm just over it. I think that this thing is starting to get really played out.
Yeah, they've definitely gotten to like the jumping the shark moment for sure. Like, where it's just going to keep getting kind of like more and more. I mean, it's just like twist after twist after twist after twist at this point to where like, yeah. Like, I mean, I will say this. I tweeted this. I thought this was pretty clever, and this is probably the truth. Hopefully it's the truth. Maybe Jimmy Uso turned on Jay because he knows that Cody should be the guy to beat Roman. Like, it isn't, like it's not. It should be Cody. So, he's helping protect, the Nightmare family. I think that, like Heyman, talking about how they're only in the third inning and stuff like
Oh,
that.
I literally cringed. I was just like, oh my God, stop it. You are such a liar. That's what I was like, he is such a car salesman up there. He is such a liar. And he's talking about like, and not only that, Heyman is one of those guys that like literally could be a cult leader. And there are going to be people that are going to hang on everything he says, right? So if he says that up at the press conference, oh no, the Bloodline's great. We're in the third inning, baby. We're in the third quarter. Like we're just getting this thing started. Like just hold on. Heyman said so. Like no, dude, this thing is a wrap. It is not that good anymore. Like it just isn't. And I don't know. I just think that they've booked themselves to getting to the point to where this is going to get stupid. I really feel that way. I feel like we're just going to get goofier and goofier all the way through until we get to Mania.
Well, really, the only things that we would really have to look forward to that make sense in the story before we get to WrestleMania would be Solo Sikoa versus Roman, and then, I mean, the thing that could really throw the wrench in all this would be The Rock. If The Rock becomes available and they want to do that instead of Cody or something, like that would, but that's possible. So like that's really the only other thing that they could go with is Roman and The Rock outside of Roman and Solo, and like then this thing is completely tapped. Like someone said in the chat about they're milking it like the NWO. Someone said that a second ago. But that's true. Yeah, I mean would have like Bloodline Silver and Black, coming up soon. Like the Bloodline 2000.
This is like after Starrcade 97 where Hogan has already faced Sting and it wasn't very good. And then they did rematches at like Super Brawl and all this stuff. And then once that was over, then they broke them up and they feuded. The NWO feuded against each other. And that's exactly where we're at right now. And it just, people are so sensitive because I really don't think that they watch WCW and watch something so great just turn into just a shell of itself. And this is starting to give me the same vibes. Because they just want to continue this thing on. And I don't think that this is the right way to go about things. I think that they've really dropped the ball on this thing. I think they were at such a peak with Sammy. And then none of that, Sammy was so over. And now like he is not at all. And they wanted to stick with this title reign. And I just, sometimes playing it safe is not the right answer. And I feel like they're definitely playing it safe by just keeping the belt on Roman. It's just, it's dumb.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's still, I mean, potentially, I'm not saying that they should do this, but like there's potentially still enough time to where like the Bloodline can kind of like feud with each other. And then by WrestleMania, like they're a group again. So it really is still like Cody versus all of them by WrestleMania. And we still kind of get, I mean, the thing is, they're just doing this all a year late. I mean, regardless if they put it on Cody, they're just doing it all a year late. So, like, but the upside of it, the only silver lining of it is, I was saying during WrestleMania last year, like Cody's never going to be this more over. The time's never going to be more perfect, so on and so forth. But he's more over now than he was then. Like honestly, if you're looking at like consistently, like every single show, his entrance music they're popping louder for, everyone's singing it more, he's selling the hell out of merchandise, like he's becoming more and more face of the company. So like they actually have built him even, but the counter to that and like where they should be anyway is like they would have accomplished all this just like with him already as the champion. Like he'd still be where he's at right now as the face of this whole thing, just as over, still feuding with Brock, still doing whatever he's going to do next. It just would have been him as the champion doing it. So that's the thing, I think WWE just got super, super dead set on this whole 1,000-day title reign thing for Roman Reigns. They figure like we're invested too much, we're too deep now. Like he can really only lose this at WrestleMania at this point. And now like we just have to, like, I don't think that probably a couple months before WrestleMania, there probably was no plan to make another world title. You know what I mean? There was probably no plan, like long-term plans to have this title Seth Rollins has. And now there's kind of the spot where they're like, well, Roman's just going to have to be the champion for a whole another year. And we can't just not have a title on Raw. So like, we got to do something. Like the whole company's just on hold for a year. And once again, God forbid, Cody gets hurt again, Roman gets hurt, something happens, someone gets sick, like just something bad happens, and like this can't. You're I don't know, but hopefully nothing bad happens, and Cody winds up winning the championship at WrestleMania this year. But as far as the Bloodline stuff goes, I definitely agree. It's already hit like maximum peak interest for me. That happened like a little while ago, and now I'm at the point where like, you can only turn people and swerve people so much before it's just like, it's just gonna. I think a lot of the fan base feels the same. I think most people thought that it was like a pretty big miss, like the SummerSlam main event and like the turn and everything just didn't hit how the WWE is expecting it to. And now they got to kind of be worried a little bit where it's like, well, that didn't really work. And our next plan was to do, this or that. So like, should we, or like, maybe they start getting in their own heads about how they really need to, go about doing this going forward with the Bloodline. I don't know, but
I will say this real quick about The Rock.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be perfect for The Rock to be at Royal Rumble.
I agree.
Because then it's like you basically have like gone through the whole Bloodline storyline. The Bloodlines completely fall apart to the point to where The Rock is questioning, why are you calling yourself the tribal chief when you've completely lost our family? And then they wrestle, and then Roman wins against The Rock at Royal Rumble. And then that gives him enough shine to defend the title at Mania and then lose to Cody. And then you get both. Because if you remember, like, The Rock faced CM Punk at the Royal Rumble, right? Like, It's not like, it makes a lot of sense in my opinion. And then if The Rock still wants to do Mania, you can do something else. But at least you get that tribal chief storyline done, and you're still able. Because the problem with The Rock is he can't win. He can't win the title because there's no future in that. So at least this way you can do it, and you can have The Rock lose, and then you can still have Cody win at WrestleMania. So, I mean, to me, like, that makes all the sense in the world, is to have The Rock actually face Roman at the Royal Rumble. And I would be super excited for that, because everybody wants the tribal chief storyline, because everyone views The Rock as the real tribal chief of the family. So I think that makes a lot of sense. The Rock could definitely use it. It would only heat up Roman after getting stale after all the Bloodline feud. And then you go in there and face Cody at Mania. I mean, and then it's like Roman has been on such a long run, and he's exhausted, and he loses, and it's like it just makes sense, and he can go on to the sunset. I feel like once Roman loses the title, he might be gone for a while, like a long while,
or just be like Brock Lesnar status, where he just like pops in and out like for special attractions, and like, which is why it's
like,
so
I don't know if he'll
like,
get the title again and then again. Right. Like this might be one of the last title reigns of Roman Reigns by the time that it's over.
Right. It's like watching like an Anderson Silva like title run or something, like just like to have to make that climb back up to that title after having a run like that is like, and could you ever top the first title run going? I mean, I shouldn't say first. I mean, Roman's been the champion before, but nothing's going to top this run for Roman. Like, no. There's nothing. You're not going to have the belt for another 1,000+ days after losing it, So it's just
probably nobody will, honestly.
Not,
like this is going to go down for the books.
Hopefully Cody does. That'd be great to see. So hopefully, and then of course, it was great to see. Apparently, the thing between him and Brock after their match wasn't planned, according to Triple H. So,
right.
It was good to see Brock Lesnar acknowledge Cody Rhodes. That's, I mean, I'd imagine, I knew going into this, I figured that Brock had a lot of respect for Cody, because you can just tell in the way that Brock works, like whether he likes someone or respects them or not. Like, you'll have completely different matches. His motivation level, like, really dips if he doesn't like you and stuff. And, like,
I agree.
To have 3 matches with Cody, you already have to have a level of respect. And to have Cody pin him the first time straight up, like, and then the back and forth, like, clearly there's respect there. I'm sure Brock also respects Dusty and stuff. So, like, there's clearly a big respect there. And it was cool to see, like, they just need to keep doing more of that. Just keep like, Cody's already gotten the Cena endorsement. He's got the Brock endorsement now. Like, he'll probably get the Rock endorsement too. Like, I could see something happening maybe at the Rumble where, like, if they did the Rock versus Roman, and like Roman or the Rock gets like kind of screwed, at the end of it or something, or like, you know, then like leading into WrestleMania, The Rock, like, you know, endorses Cody or helps him or something. Like, I don't know. Like I could see Cody kind of getting the endorsement of all the other faces of the company that he can, and then like the lead up to this. And then, yeah, I mean, that's obviously how I hope it goes down for him, because I mean, it didn't even just for me as a massive Cody fan. Like, I mean, we're at a point now where the Bloodline storyline is tapped. You got to get a new champion, and like, you can't waste it on somebody. Like, this is going to be a massive deal. Whoever beats Roman for this thing, because there's going to be huge expectations for that person to be the true face of the company after Roman, and Cody's the only person that makes sense to do that right now. But they have a good talent pool of up and coming people and like veterans and stuff, where like, that doesn't, just because of that doesn't mean I think that Cody's going to just like be the champion forever, be the face of the company forever. He's already like around 40 years old. Like, I'm realistic about that too. But like, for the time being, for the next handful of years, he's clearly the guy. And then from there, you just got to figure out who the next few guys and girls and stuff are going to be. But like, yeah.
Well, and real quick, what happened too with Roman to have such a long title reign is there was nobody like that. That's where we were at, where it's just like, it doesn't make any sense for anybody to beat Roman. But if there starts to be guys that it makes more sense for them to be champion than Roman, that's when fans start to get irritated. That's when fans start to say, like, this is nonsense. And to me, I feel like it's a hurdle just to make it to January if Roman is champion at this point. Like, that is a long ways away. And I just think that, like, by the time that they get to, like, Mania time, people are going to be really over Roman Reigns being champion. And that's why I say, like, they should do the Rock feud just to heat that up beforehand, because I feel like by the time that he actually gets to Mania, it's going to be so obvious that Cody is going to win the title. And then if it doesn't happen, like, God forbid, I just don't even know how the fans will react at that point.
That's what happened this year, though. Like, we were all
I agree.
positive. So, like, and for all we know, they're like, all right, Cody, one more year. Like, we got to get one more year out of Roman before all this is over. So, like, you'll get the trilogy at Mania next year, and you'll finally win it, you know, for all we know. So, like, that said, I do have to go. I'm going to plug my stuff real quick.
No problem.
So, speaking of Cody, as I said at the top of the show, you know, please watch the Spotlight on Fightful. That's every Thursday morning with myself and Jeremy Lambert, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. The planned guest for this Thursday morning is Teal Rhodes, the sister of Cody. So she was a big part of the documentary on Peacock, and obviously she's Cody's sister. So like, there's certain things we can and can't talk about, obviously, in the interview, but it's going to be really cool to talk to her. I fingers crossed. The interview is supposed to go down tomorrow, and then we'll hear it on Thursday morning. We get to see it on Thursday morning. So please support the Spotlight over there on Fightful. We always have interviews for y'all. We actually recorded an interview with independent pro wrestler Adam Priest right before I came on here tonight. So, you know, we had interviews for y'all. We talked with the whole world of wrestling over there. So check that out. That's over on the main Fightful YouTube channel. Please follow me on Twitter at FightTalk_. And please check out the Fightful Select Weekender podcast. It's every Sunday, sometimes on Mondays, depending on if there's pay-per-views and stuff. But usually Sundays, FightfulSelect.com. I mainly talk independent wrestling there. And use code FightTalk on independentwrestling.tv. So I'm going to go home go home. I'm already home. I'm going to go to sleep. I'm super exhausted. Good to see you, Doug. Good to see everyone in the chat. And sure. I don't know how long Doug's going to be on here with y'all tonight, but I know last week he was on here for a while with y'all. So
I don't know if we'll go an hour and a half, but we'll see how it goes.
Nice. See y'all.
All right, later, Steven. Hold on. What's up, guys? You guys wanted me to stay on? Are we good for tonight? Let me know. If you guys have some questions, send them, and I'll try to answer them the best I can. I'm going to add an overlay real quick because this is looking rough. All right. If you're down to chat, send me something. I'll answer it. My kids start school tomorrow, My son starts kindergarten. My daughter starts 6th grade, so they're back at school tomorrow. Summer's over. Where did I go? Well, that didn't work out the way that I wanted to. Let's see here. There we go. Okay. All right, fellas. Let's see what you got. Do I still think Eli Manning is trash? I think he is the luckiest quarterback. Oh my god. And like look at like his career record is everything, right? I think it's like 200 wins and 200 losses. Like that's Eli Manning. Like that's just what he turned out to be. So yeah, I'm not the biggest fan. And I honestly think Tony Romo was better than Eli Manning by a lot. Was never afraid of Eli Manning. I just think that he was on a really good team and came through on some clutch moments. But man, I think he's one of the most overrated quarterbacks. Thoughts on when MJF and Punk could be happening? Punk has been throwing little jabs at him. Yeah, I mean, he's got the real world title, right? X'd out the elite on it. I don't know, man. Like I said, Punk has really set himself for like so many different feuds and things that he could be involved in. I guess that might be like pre-planned and that was always the strategy. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's interesting. Like, and yeah, like to me, MJF hasn't mentioned him yet. Like, um, I I think once that happens, it's on. Like if well, the moment that MJF actually acknowledges him, then here we go. It's crazy to say that Connor can beat Jake Paul in a boxing fight, considering Washington was able to be competitive with him. Yeah, man, I don't know. The problem with Connor is he has no cardio, especially going to be at like 185. Like I wouldn't put much bank into that. I also think it's ridiculous how he's handling this Chandler fight. Like you owe Chandler the fight. Like don't pull out and try to go and face Justin Gaethje or Nate or whatever. Like you did this thing with Chandler. You agreed to fight Chandler. Like you owe him the fight. I have 0 LA Knight merchandise. I would probably get a figure though. Might have to wait for the ultimate. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan. But I get it, right? I understand why WWE fans like him. Now, if you're like a diehard pro wrestling fan, it's kind of questionable, I guess. But I get it. I get it. And some people just like to be really entertained, you know? Yeah, absolutely. Giants D line was absolutely insane. They absolutely were. Absolutely were. Hate them all. Yeah, I think Tony Romo is extremely underrated. I can go on all day about Romo. Like, and the thing is, people are like, "Well, you just say that because you're a Cowboys fan." Like, no, dude. Like, there's so many Cowboy fans that hated Romo, just like the Cowboy fans that hate Dak. Um, but like, no, Romo was ride or die, dude. He gave it his all. I couldn't. I always felt like we always had a chance when Romo was playing. It didn't matter who we were going against. You know, we could be going up against the best team in the NFL, and I felt like we could have won if Romo was playing. Like Romo would he just give it his all, and he was so clutch. If like we were only down by like 2 scores, 8 minutes left, he would find a way to get us into back in that game. He's just super smart. Had to bounce out earlier, so I wasn't sure if you got the super chat or not. But thoughts on getting man, yeah, dude. I answered it actually. This is one of the first things I answered once we got the thing going. Like we were having streaming issues, but yeah, I did answer it earlier. It's just tough with Omega and Ospreay because, like I said, if you give them that match, then they're going to have to main event, and I really think they want to main event MJF and Cole. So, and it really does seem like we're going to get Ospreay and Jericho likely, which means Jericho's got to turn down Don Callis. So, be interesting to see how that goes. Thoughts on the day pay-per-views? Stoked to not stay up till 12:30 for All In. I know it's England, but still, yeah, no, I'm down. Sounds great to me. Get it out of the way. Hopefully, feel really good about it after it's over. What fights would Doug want in UFC 300 next year? Man, I don't know. Like, there's not a lot of like dream matchups or things that I really want to see. And that's not that it's bad. It's just there's a lot of fights that have happened at this point, so a lot of it's just rematches. There's nothing that like I'm really clamoring for, and a lot of guys are going to be retired. You know, like I think Poirier will be out the door pretty soon. John Jones wants to retire after his next fight. I don't think Justin Gaethje's going to be in there much longer. Like once he gets a title shot and loses, I think he's out. There's just a lot of guys that are going to be retiring that we grew up with. We're going to get into the new batch, the new era. So kind of have to see how that develops. Ospreay better not face Jericho at Wembley. I hope he faces Omega or Takeshita. I think Omega is going to face Takeshita, so Ospreay will face Jericho. Like, this is what it is. I don't love it, but it is what it is. Yeah, that'd be fun. Heel Punk versus face MJF. I'm down for that. I think that'd be kind of cool. Let's see. Jericho has to set up something with Sammy at All Out as they've been building towards that more. Yeah, but like if he stays with the Appreciation Society, then not really. You know, like if that's what they choose to do. Connor got precision punches that could stun her, Jake. Yeah, he could for 2 rounds, and then it's over. Like that's just what happens with him now. And not only that, dude, he's massive. I mean, he's like 185, 190. If he wasn't in shape at 170, what makes you think he'll be in shape at 190? Like I just think it's over, dude. It is over. Who's taking the belt off MJF when the time comes? To me, it's Ospreay if they can sign him away from New Japan. Other than that, I can't really see anyone beating MJF anytime soon. Maybe it's Adam Cole. I don't know. I think that's definitely a big possibility. I think Adam Cole's got to get that title. So I think that we could see Adam Cole take the belt. I would love to see an Omega babyface run with the title. Hey, we never got that. We only got heel Omega. I'd love to see Omega as a full-on babyface with the belt. Knock out a bunch of dream matches there. What I think about Terrell Owens' debate with Skip Bayless. Skip's so rude, man. He's so rude. And they say brutally honest, but like be somewhat respectful. That's why him and Richard Sherman is going to be a disaster. Like that's a mess. I think it's dumb. I think LuFisto's full of crap. I think she's causing drama. I think MJF's tweet was right for the most part. Like if you know you're never going to make it, what better way to stir things up and get attention than, going after people that are making it. And I'm going to be honest, this might get me some heat, but whatever. What she tried to do is what the women did to Tessa Blanchard. And the problem with the Tessa thing is Tessa didn't have any power or any way to stop it. So they all grouped up together and then they tried to go like honestly, LuFisto and some others, they tried to talk bad about AEW, and then they were going to go after Tony Khan, right? That's not going to work. But if you go after someone like a Tessa, she doesn't have any way to defend herself. It's just her word against theirs. But if you give 6 or 7 of these girls on a group that they magically decide to go after Tessa the day she wins the title, then all of a sudden, like, they're completely destroying her and she can't do anything about it. And even though that she's made up with the person that they said that what she said or whatever, like, none of it matters, right? Like, the women's division sucks. Every company could use Tessa, and they choose not to go there because they're afraid of the backlash. Like, imagine how much better AEW's women's division is if Tessa's in it. Same thing in WWE. And, like, the sad thing is like, Tessa got bullied by these girls. That was a hit job. They went directly after her, and they all it was a coordinated effort. And I just think that it's shameful. And it's by a lot of women that were never going to be as good as Tessa. That were extremely jealous of Tessa, and they character assassinated her, and they ended her career out of jealousy. And I just think it sucks. Yeah, Jones is not going to stick around, dude. I think he's done. Yeah, I think it's going to be a train wreck. I think it'll be interesting, though, because we know that Sherman doesn't like Skip Bayless. So, like, going into it, it's like they don't have to be fake and ha-ha, they're friends like Shannon and Skip were. Like, Sherman doesn't like Skip Bayless, and he knows that. So that's why I find it could be interesting. But watch, Richard Sherman now is about to become the biggest cowboy hater of all time because that's the gimmick now. Let's see what else we got. How do you feel about Christian acting like he's a TNT champion with how the TNT title's been poorly used? It's a nice change of pace. Christian kicking his daughter out of the arena was hilarious. Yeah, that was funny. Man, he's been a really brutal heel, right? Just like absolutely heartless and ruthless. And yeah, it does bring attention to the title. But I do think there needs to be someone that's holding it that really will defend it, kind of like your Orange Cassidy type title run. We're not there yet, but we'll get there. People like LA Knight because he gets a big pop. Crowd reaction determines popularity in wrestling more than a lot of other entertainment forms. Popular opinion tends to compound. I mean, yes and no. Because it depends on what is the pop for. Like the Acclaim, for example. Are people popping because they love them or they love to scissor? Because that's a thing, right? It's the same thing. Did they love Rusev or did they love chanting Rusev Day? Did they like Fandango or did they like dancing? Like, it just depends on what they're popping for. Now, I think LA Knight is very much resemblance of The Rock and Austin. And so you're going to get the people that are fans of nostalgia that don't feel like it's a total ripoff and it hits them in the feels. They're going to be behind him. And then you're going to get the new fans who never really saw The Rock and Austin and kind of enjoy that style as well. So, I mean, I get why he's over. I just don't think he's very good. Yeah. Connor, Nate 3 or Connor versus Chandler for the BMF title can headline UFC 300. Add in Izzy versus Chimaev. If Chimaev and Izzy wins, a co-main event can work. Yeah, I mean, I guess it just depends on where Izzy is in his career, where Chimaev is. I mean, like, so much can happen in a year, man. So much can happen. Let's see here. I hope Jericho accepts because it would make sense for Jericho versus Omega 3 and Jericho versus Guevara. And if he wants to do Ospreay versus Jericho, it makes sense because Ospreay said to Callis not needing him. Not needed him. I don't know. I really don't want to see Jericho Omega 3. Really don't. I really feel like Jericho should be working his way out and not just kind of going with the motions and going on to the next storyline. Like there probably should start to be an end game for this thing. I have no idea. I've never seen Lufisto wrestle. I could care less. If I had to pick between pro wrestling, MMA, or football, yeah, I don't know, man. I love them all. Can't do it, and it really just depends, right? It's not all of it. Not all of it is the same. Like if the Cowboys suck, then football season isn't as exciting. If there's not a lot of big stars in MMA at the moment, then that's not as exciting. If pro wrestling was just WWE, then that's kind of blah. So it just depends on kind of what's the most buzzworthy, what's going on to kind of determine how much I care about each one. But I mean, I love them all. Do you think it is possible AEW's purposely leaving Omega versus Punk off All In to save it for a different stadium show down the road? I mean, I think it's the biggest match you can do. And personally, I would rather have them do it later on, not way later, probably even sometime this year. But I would rather have them do it where we have more than just 3 weeks to build. I think at this point that ship has sailed. Yeah, that's my opinion too. Is I think CMFTR going for the trios titles kind of seems like the elite could get involved in that, and especially if you wanted to have like a match that could kind of sell out the United Center. I think that's a big one right there. Punk Omega happens at MSG or Stadium Show in Chicago, Canada, like the Sky Dome. Yeah, it's going to be it would be a big show. What else we got here? Do you think Jade will return at All In or All Out possibly? If so, do you see her taking a belt back from Statlander or pivoting to the AEW's Women's Championship against Sheeta? I think she'd pivot for the Women's Championship. She's already done the TBS thing. I feel like Statlander's run has been very bland, not very good at all. So I feel like Jade's run was much better. Not really sure what they do with it though. It's very possible. I think that's what people are going to be tuning in to see kind of what happens. Did I enjoy First Take or Undisputed more? Yeah, I have First Take. I didn't really watch Undisputed much. And First Take is still can be so ridiculous. Although, man, I've been really enjoying Stephen A's podcast because like he's really able to talk politics and just about, you know, social media stuff and just about like relevant news and not just about sports. And he just it to me, it just seems like that's where his passion is now because he's just able to really say what he wants to say because in ESPN, he has to go by a certain way that they want him to talk and do and stuff. And so like I find that one interesting with him. So yeah, I think that'll be good. And also, it kind of seems like he's kind of like setting himself up to leave ESPN eventually. And from what I read, like ESPN is in real trouble, like real trouble. Like Disney is desperate to sell it. But like, if you think about it, like, do you really need ESPN at this point? Like, why can't you just watch First Take on YouTube Live, or why can't you just watch it on ESPN Plus or whatever? Like, I feel like certain shows people will tune into, but like the days of us like watching news all day about sports is over. And so I think ESPN is on life support, honestly. I feel like so much of the stuff that we knew and grew up with is going to be gone within the next 5 years. You know, I saw a thing that Patrick Bet-David said that basically 1 billion jobs will be gone in 10 years by AI, which is just absolutely frightening, and like no idea how we function as a society or anything like that. So I don't know, man. I was hoping to live to the point to where I didn't have to deal with all this stuff, and it's just like I got that midway mark and here it comes. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, Nick, I think we absolutely need other places besides Chicago and like New Jersey. Um, I think Texas is a big one, you know, for obvious reasons. You've got Florida that does pretty well. Seattle, I think, is a big wrestling place that would do well. Um, and I don't think you can determine ticket sales based on what you do at Dynamite. Like if you do a pay-per-view, people will travel, people will go from all around. That's why I think like if you do a one in Texas, then people from San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, Houston, wherever you're going, it's all like about a 3-hour drive, and you'll just get people from all over Texas that'll go to a show. But yeah, I mean, it just makes a lot of sense to branch out. Miss the days of Civil War till in game. Great build up, phenomenal. I mean, it's going to go down as like one of the all time great movie franchises. But man, God, did it fall off? Oh my God. Undercard matches I would want. I'm trying to think of like also just build up wise, story wise. What's going on with certain stuff? That's a good question. Honestly, I haven't really thought about that. I'm kind of just along for the ride at this point. Like, what haven't you not gotten that you really want? I mean, like storyline wise, we never got an ending of Keith Lee and Swerve, but like that doesn't keep me up at night or anything, right? So yeah, I don't know, man. Like trying to think. I'm pretty excited about the All In card. You know, it'd be pretty dope if we could get a Takeshita Osprey match at All Out. If let's say that Takeshita and like let's say Takeshita loses to Kenny, Osprey beats Jericho, and then they do a match at All Out. I think that would be sick. So yeah, I'd want something like that. And I honestly, I wouldn't mind it All Out. Punk facing the winner of MJF and Adam Cole. It'd be dope if it was Adam Cole. Adam Cole versus CM Punk in Chicago would be sick. So yeah, there's a couple of them there. If I had to pick between the Phase 3 of Marvel or Star Wars first original trilogy, oh my God. I'm going to go with Star Wars. And I know it's not the most popular opinion, especially modern day, because it's definitely outdated at this point. But like, it's one of the greatest stories ever told. And it's so complex. And it's such the battle of good and evil. And the twist of his Darth Vader being his father. And like, just the depth that it has. And Leia is his sister. And like the final battle and him turning to beat the emperor and like redeeming himself at the end where like good overcomes evil. It's just like if you notice back in the day, it was all about that, right? It was like good versus evil, the good guys and bad guys. And like everything was like creators. And now the modern day, it's like it's all blurred lines. There is no good and evil, and everything is destroyed. Like if you notice, usually the characters start out just like kind of in shambles, and then they'll have like a slow redemption arc, but nothing like major. And like in so many movies that I grew up with, it's about like if you're broken down, it's like working your way to the top and building yourself up. That's why I loved like karate movies and stuff. Because it was just like usually it's like someone getting their ass kicked and then they find like a sensei or whatever and get trained and then get revenge or whatever. And it was just like always inspirational. Like there's so many movies where you felt like you could do anything after it was over, gave you hope. And now all that's gone. It's been taken away because of a certain ideology and they just want you like miserable. It's kind of disgusting. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the prequels. People can hate on them all they want, but it's still George Lucas. Still has a lot of really great moments. And I think a lot of it too is just it was such a shock from going from like practical effects to like almost entire CGI. But like if you compare the prequels to like the new Star Wars, I mean it's night and day. Prequels are so much better. Granted, rough dialogue. It's definitely not the best script, screenplay, whatever you want to say, but it's definitely still very enjoyable, and I'm a big fan of the prequels. I actually like Hayden as Anakin. Big fan. I'll be that guy. The women's division is awful and none of them are draws. That's just me. So here's my thing with the women's division that I hate is, first of all, if you're a guy and you are a pro wrestling fan and you simp for the women's division, go find your nuts. Like, stop it. Quit acting like the women's division is the best thing in the world and they're the biggest stars and this is it's not. It's not. Stop it. We all know you're fake. I do think that there are certain women matches that are very good. You know, Bailey and Sasha. I thought Hayter and Storm was awesome. And the thing that I liked about Jamie Hayter is she was just so much more stiff. She really laid it in. It was so much more physical. And so many of these ladies, they just don't want to do that. Like Britt, right? Britt ain't there to lay anything in. And Taya just kind of goes with the motions. Statlander had potential. But like we are talking about just a couple that are like really good. And then the rest are just kind of just there. Like your Anna Jays. Like what does she bring to the table? What does Sky Blue bring to the table? A lot of people just say ass, right? She's green. Ruby Soho. What is the point of that? Like none of these, like the whole entire Owen Hart women's tournament was not great. It's not great. This whole year for AEW women wrestling has not been great. And that's just the honest truth. And if you're not great, why do you have people begging for more content of mediocre? And the reason is because it's for social justice. They don't care about pro wrestling. They're not there to make sure that the show is great. They're there to stand for what they believe in from a moral standpoint. And it's the same people that keep saying that the WNBA players should be paid as much as the NBA players. It's totally ridiculous. Nobody cares about the WNBA. It's just the honest truth. Yeah, I mean, Alex, that's the problem, right? Like, I honestly, I don't think we've ever been in this situation in pro wrestling where there's back-to-back pay-per-views within a week of each other. So it's like so hard to predict. And then, like, is it basically just like all in revenge? You know, like, is it kind of like what WrestleMania is to Backlash, where like it's just a bunch of rematches from WrestleMania? Like, that's the way it was. That's the way it used to be, right? So that's kind of what I feel like could happen. Maybe not rematches, but maybe like there's already a number one contender. And then, you know, like, so if Punk loses to Joe, then he faces Starks or, you know, whatever. I don't know how it would necessarily book All Out though, because like I said, it's just so difficult because I don't know what's going to happen at All In. Athena's been all right. She hasn't been too bad. I can handle Athena. Solid. Thinks BCC story setting up a casino battle royal for an all-out title match. Be interesting. I saw it on there. I haven't checked it out yet. Like, it was like, how much money did I make? And is this guy a jerk or not? Like, stuff like that. It didn't overly keep my attention, but I didn't watch it either. It wasn't enough for me to click and check out. Let's see here. It's going to be an end of an era soon since Connor's declining. Nate left. Masvidal retired. Could be retired. Dustin lost. Tony's on decline. Usman on decline. Joe Rogan less involved. Yeah, absolutely. You know, but like I already went through this before, right? Like Vanderlei Silva, Vitor Belfort, Tito Ortiz, Chuck Liddell, you know, George St. Pierre, like all those guys, Josh Koscheck and Dan Hardy and, you know, Shane Carwin and Tim Sylvia and Andre Arlovsky, and, you know, like it all comes to an end. And I think what's going to happen is as this goes on, these careers are going to be less and less. Guys are going to make more money and they're not going to fight as long. Full Gear at like California would be dope. Like if they could go to LA, I think that would be cool. Doug is going to watch Tyrus versus EC3 at NWA 75 instead of All In at Wembley. No, I'm not. I'm not even going to watch that match. I could care less. My thoughts exactly. That was a letdown because I was hoping it was Marty. They were hinting at it being Marty, and then it was ICP. I was like, oh my God. Yeah, Mike Goldberg got done dirty. It's sad. He was such a huge voice for the UFC. And then, Joe, he's already kind of wind down to where he's only doing American pay-per-views. I don't know. He's been doing it for a long time, but he loves fighting, right? But I think his fight companion will blow up. He had one this weekend with Eddie Bravo again and Brandon Schwab. So I would definitely look into that. I think that's more of what the future will be, is him doing fight companions. Yeah, that's a good question. I have no idea what Hangman will do. He's kind of been like affiliated with the Elite this whole time. He needs to find a feud. Who do you guys want to see Hangman face? Like, what makes sense too? Can't just like randomly pick something. House crooked. Still is, whatever. Hangman Ospreay. Yeah, that'd be fun. I would be down for that. Yeah, that's what a lot of people were thinking was Marty. It's gonna be terrible. Like all Disney live action stuff now. That Snow White thing is total trash. And then I don't even know if they'll actually release that Snow White. It's getting so much heat, and they're in such bad shape right now. By the way, the investor call for Disney is like in 2 days, I think. It might even be tomorrow. I need to check on that. But anyways, they got a lot of explaining to do, and those investors are going to be really pissed off. So that should be pretty interesting. I'll definitely be listening to it. Hear Bob Iger sweat and lie through his teeth. Yeah, and I mean that's just the reality of the situation, right? There are 3 good women in AEW. Like, there's not enough for a division. There's just not. And then we definitely like people get upset when there's like, why is it that you only have the one women's match at like the quarter hour right before the main event? It's so disrespectful. And I was like, dude, just be happy that they even get a match because this stuff is rough. And it usually kills the vibe of the show, right? Like it's banger, it's cool promo, it's all this, and then they bring out the women's match and it's not very good, and it kind of kills the whole flow of the thing, and then you have the main event. Yeah, Sheeta Storm's fine. It could have been better though. Like Storm has had really good matches. So I mean, I think it definitely could have been better, but it is what it is. Connor versus Nate rematch is the beginning phases of UFC getting into the wider mainstream since at 1.65 million pay-per-views. Yeah, like that's crazy. That's a crazy number. And what's funny is, man, like I never would have thought Nate would have been the star over Nick. Never. Nick was always the guy. Nick was like my favorite. And it was always Nick Diaz Army. And like Nate was always in the shadow of Nick. And then like Nick got suspended for marijuana for like 5 years or whatever. And then that's when Nate just like took the throne. Personally, Star Wars for me. And the MCU, it's like once Star Wars happened, is like MCU was clearly next because it's Disney. It's Disney. They have a woke agenda and they've put it through both of their content, and like neither one of the content you can't just go from like no wokeness to like jam packed with wokeness and act like that it's a natural fit. It stands out so bad. Like, bro, that Boba Fett show, when those dudes got on those bikes and they were like the colors of like the Power Rangers, it looks so bad. It just looked so bad. A handful of people in the women's division that look believable in the ring, like Storm, Sheeta, Willow, Athena, Statlander, Hater. Yeah, I'll go with that. But they have 2 titles, man. 2 titles, and that's all you've got. Like, that ain't enough. I'm not the biggest TV series guy just because I'm not dedicated enough to finish the whole shows. I have been enjoying like the little 8-episode type TV shows. So like, but I do love Cobra Kai. Absolutely love Cobra Kai. I really liked Reacher on Amazon. I thought that was good. And the Chris Pratt one, what was that? Terminal something. That was good. I enjoyed that. Love like sports documentaries. Like I can't wait to when I get off, I'm gonna watch Hard Knocks. Want to check out that De La Hoya documentary too. But yeah, like I've watched The Office, Friends, like some of the comedy stuff. I haven't really watched. Like I haven't watched Breaking Bad. Couldn't get in. I decided not to really get into Game of Thrones because the season finale of season 8, I think it was, is so bad that like I just didn't even want to get all involved in it and then be let down. Plus, I like honestly, like to me, it's like a chore to get through like 7 seasons of something. I just don't have the patience for it. Yeah, he really did. They all do, though, man. Yeah, they all do. But yeah, he was so against celebrity culture too. Like he wanted to do everything that like boxing wouldn't do, and now like we're at a point to where it's like he just, I mean, like he'll cancel a fight or reschedule a fight so Mark Zuckerberg can watch it live. You know what I mean? Like that stuff would have never happened back in the day. Oh, lovely. I'll have to look into that. A lot of the women succeed in AEW are women who have gone through the ringer in Japan. Say what you will about the training being brutal and thoroughly weeds out the women who aren't serious. Yeah, no, I could see that. Like, don't you think like so much more drama has been added to pro wrestling when women have become more of a focus? I feel like it's just so much more drama than what we used to have. Yeah, I hear quite a bit about Impact's women's division. I mean, that's all good. Like maybe it's just AEW just needs to trim the fat, get rid of a lot of these women wrestlers that aren't delivering, and go and get some real legit ones. Yeah, I saw it. I hate Vince Russo. Guy's such a moron. Can't stand him. And when he was describing like his crash test wrestling that he liked to do, where it was like 5-minute, 8-minute match, backstage segment, promo, another 5-minute, 8-minute match, just makes me so sick. Like that's not what I want in pro wrestling at all. Well, they did that at Supercard of Honor. And man, like I don't think it'll be better than that. Like Ibushi's looking rough. I think it's about almost over for him. No, I don't think Okada will have a match. Obi-Wan sucked. Oh my God, did they drop the ball on that? So terrible. Don't even get me started. I will freaking. Oh, I hate that show. And like, I absolutely love Anakin and Obi-Wan. And like, for them to have that show and put in what they did and low budget the piss out of it too. Like, you could tell they shot that thing during COVID. Like, it's just awful, terrible. Did the UFC really miss the boat on Conor Nate trilogy in their primes? Conor versus Masvidal in 2020 and Conor versus Khabib rematch? Man, with Conor, it's like a lot of this is like he just didn't want to fight anymore. Like when Conor beat Eddie Alvarez and then decided to like go off and face Floyd, after the Floyd fight, Conor's never been the same. Like the last masterful performance was when he pieced up Eddie Alvarez the way he did. Like after that though, like he's just never been the same. So like I just don't like, even if everything was there and they could have got it done, like I don't know if he'd agree to fight these guys anymore. And I think now it's just him talking just to stay relevant. But like he doesn't have intention of fighting a lot of these people, I'm telling you. Can't believe I missed Cobra Kai until this year. Some of the most fun I had watching a show in a very long time. I love Cobra Kai. Like when I heard about it, like I watched it on YouTube Red. Like you had to become, it was a subscription service on YouTube, and that's how they had Cobra Kai. And then they had the first 2 seasons, and then you had to wait because they sold to Netflix and you had to wait like 2 years for season 3, which was absolutely brutal. But I was super excited to watch it. And now we're at the final season and we got to wait again because of the stupid strike. And they haven't even filmed the thing. So like it's going to be forever. Cuz I wouldn't be surprised if this strike goes on for another 6 months or more. And then like I said you got to film it. So that, I mean like we're talking probably not 2 years for the final season. I actually have both of those too, The Wire and The Sopranos. I just haven't watched them, but I have them. A lot of people say that, I don't know, man. Just don't. That's a big commitment. Yeah, and he never used to be that way. It's really disappointing. Is it the review of the last one with Hogan? I'll have to check that out. I'm sure he goes off on Russo. Man, I thought he was going to die in the last season, and it was fake. But yeah, I think something like that's going to happen. It's like, and I think he'll be a good guy when he dies. It's like his redemption arc or whatever. But man, those guys are so good and they care about the character so much and they make sure that it makes sense for the character. That's what Star Wars is missing. Like these people took their own luxuries and ideas of what they wanted to do, and it made no sense to what the characters were. And like they respect the character so much. They love the Cobra Kai series so much, the Karate Kid universe so much that they make sure to honor those characters. And I mean, whether it's just like the little girl that Daniel saved in Okinawa and how she turned out, or like, Chosen or Johnny or Haley. And like Haley was done so dirty in the end of her show. And then like she basically was just, found a frat boy and like left Daniel and damaged his car. Like that's it. And like with Cobra Kai, you were able to redeem those storylines and make her such a more redeemable, likable character in the end. And they did that with a lot of them, right? And so that's why I love that show so much. Is it's like, let's be honest, it's probably like 6 hours total of 3 movies, and they've been able to make an entire 6 seasons when it's all said and done of like that whole entire universe of those movies. And that's incredible. Yeah, and like Cowboy was so checked out though. Like that's the thing, is like it was good for Connor, like worked out, but like to me that's not a sign of like Connor being the man. The Dustin Poirier fights are the ones that are like, okay, you look at the first one and you look at those next two, and a lot of it's just about like willing to trade and getting in a fight, which Dustin was more than willing to, and Connor, he just doesn't have that in him anymore. Yeah, the flashback stuff's good. And that's the other thing, is so much more depth to Kreese and to Silver. So yeah, that's awesome. Great college player. Not the best NFL player, but a ton of heart. And if you built your offense around that guy, like you can make it work. But like nobody's going to do that in the NFL. They want you to play in their system. That's why he never worked out. But man, did he get exposed in the playoffs. But TiVo time was fun, right? Game on the line, and here he'd come. It might feel like a commitment not looking at links, but if you like it, you'll blast through the series. Yeah. I'm not saying I'll never watch it. I just don't know when I'll watch it. I think pay-per-view is dead within 3 years. I think streaming. I think what's going to happen is like it's kind of scary, but like we're basically going to be controlled by just like 4 or 5 companies, and they're going to own everything. And then they'll just pay for the rights to air that pay-per-view on their streaming service. And that'll be with all sports. That'll be with everything. And you're going to be kind of forced into like getting everything to watch stuff. I don't know. Yeah, for sure. Like all cable TV has is live sports. Once that's done, it's over. The moment the live sports goes to streaming, cable is dead. So I don't see that being very long at all. I mean, you already got the Sunday ticket now off of cable and onto streaming with YouTube TV. And that's going to be a big step in the right direction for that. I don't know if it's the right direction, but the direction to get things going to streaming, live sports. And then you'll have everything else follow because the NFL is king. But I heard that like WB is working on Max getting baseball. And so once that happens, that could open things up for AEW too, because then if you can handle baseball streams for live sports, then you can handle pro wrestling streams. But the problem is you're giving up a lot of revenue when it comes to pay-per-view, right? So like I don't know how that'll work. So it really is just going to depend on like advertisements and companies paying for events and all that stuff. I don't know. We'll see. All right, guys, it seems like you're out of questions. Nailed a lot of them. It's going to be about a 3-hour stream, so I think I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks for tuning in. Definitely appreciate it. Thanks for the people that submitted super chats. Thank you for supporting the channel. As always, I definitely appreciate that as well. Go follow me on Rumble if you can, and follow me on Twitter as well. And I will catch you guys next week. Hope everyone has a good week. And we'll be seeing what leads from Dynamite and Collision and kind of decide, the road to All In and see where we're at. So, again, thank you guys. I appreciate it. And have a good night.